Don't make me start flipping the lights. Before we begin, Chris?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I'd ask for a moment of silence in honor and remembrance of the 2,753 victims of the 9/11-2001 attacks in the U.S. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I seem to be missing something. Oh, no, I wasn't. You think I should know this by now by heart. The City of Peabody Zoning Board of Appeals meets tonight in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40A, and other applicable laws. I know I don't want to say this, but if you're going to talk, take it elsewhere. The acoustics are bad enough here. Tonight's hearing will be conducted in the following manner. The Secretary will read the legal notice or state that such notice has been waived. All applications will not be heard in the order they were received in the City Clerk's office. I'm sorry, tonight we are going out of order. The petitioner or petitioner's representative will present the subject application to the board. The chair may limit the length of all remarks. All parties in interest will be given an opportunity to speak either in favor or in opposition to a pending application, and the board may receive similar written communications to be placed on the public record. The petitioner will be given the opportunity to refute any such remarks. I'll quickly go over what that means. I know a lot of you are saying, I'm having a hard time hearing. I know the acoustics are bad. They promised that they're going to fix this by next year. So I'll do the best I can. Hopefully you all can hear me. And I'll do this quick because we have a very long agenda. When it's your turn, whatever number I call, because we are going out of order, come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and then tell us why you're here. If your attorney is here for you, if your builder is here for you, then you can come up with them. After you tell us what you're here for, the board will ask some questions. I then say, is there anybody in the audience to speak in favor? Obviously, that would be neighbors. I also will say, is there anybody in the audience to speak in opposition? Obviously, that would be neighbors too. If there are a lot of neighbors in opposition, that's usually when it happens. Just stick to the subject. You're here for dimensional relief. We're not here to listen to how you don't get along with your neighbor and the reasons why. No, not part of what we're doing. Obviously, if you want to speak on a side to your neighbor while you're sitting, take it out in the hall because the acoustics are bad enough. And even if you're whispering to your neighbor, we can hear it. So please don't do that. At that point, if you've had a lot of opposition, you can come back to the podium and you can rebuttal that if you wish, and then we take a vote. Let me just say, please, not everything can be approved. If everything is approved, and I say this every month, and it is really, 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 really important, if everything we did that came before us was approved, you would have no reason to have a zoning board. So, if you're here for dimensional relief and you're asking for realistic relief, that's great. If you're asking for the sun, the moon, and the stars, reconsider because it's not happening. And they just turned off the fan, so that will probably make everybody be able to hear us a little better. At that point, we make a decision. The decision then is typed and filed with the city clerk. Once the decision is filed with the city clerk, there is a 20-day appeal period. In compliance with the open meeting law, this hearing is also being recorded by our clerk, Ms. McGrath. When you're at the microphone, please speak clearly and only speak when you're at the podium to ensure that you are on the record. So one last little bit. Once you come up and speak, If then you sit down and your neighbor comes up and you remember something or you don't like what they're saying, please don't speak from your seat. I say it every time, and mostly every month that happens. Just wait, I'll let you come back up and you can say whatever you have to say. Okay, right now we are going to do number 1, which is the continued application of the Wright Residences LLC. And we need to accept some correspondences, correspondence before we begin. I need a motion to accept 8/31/23, the Langley closeout memo with supporting documents.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Now we have Attorney Seligson with us, and he will address the board and the public for the findings and the decision of 39 Wallace Street, 4 and 8 Upton Street, Peabody, Mass., map lot 085/011/085/010/085/009. Attorney Seligson, it is for you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, my name is Damon Seligson. I'm an attorney in Boston with the law firm of Sheehan, Finney, Bass & Green, and I'm outside counsel to your board, the zoning board for the city of Peabody. I'm going to be reading to you portions of the decision that we have provided to you for the Wright Residences 40B comprehensive permit application for the premises known as 39 Wallace Street, 4 and 8 Upton Street, Peabody. Applicant's counsel, Mr. Panos, is here. The applicant, I believe, is here as well. So the board can discuss the decision amongst yourselves. You can ask questions of me. You can ask questions of counsel. You can ask questions of the petitioner. But the public hearing is closed, so you are not to take in any more evidence or any more statements or any more public comment. This is the decision. We've given it to you, so you will then review it, discuss it, and vote. And you can ask questions of each other as well. So the petition was, the application was filed on May 4th, 2022, seeking a comprehensive permit. The proposal is to construct a mixed-use 140-unit apartment-style rental development on property consisting of 3 parcels of land identified as the City of Peabody's Assessors Map 085, Lot 011, 39 Wallace Street, Lot 10, 4 Upton Street, and Lot 9, 8 Upton Street, with frontage along and bordering Walnut Street, Wallace Street, and Upton Street in Peabody. The site contains an aggregate of 1.9 acres of land. The property has frontage along Walnut Street to the south, Wallace Street to the west, Upton Street to the north and east, and consumes almost the entire city block. The application was filed under the Federal Home Loan Bank of Boston. There was a mass housing involvement and obviously determination of all the requirements under the regulations that govern 40B. The application materials start on page 2 and run all the way to page 3. It's in the decision. The application also, the decision spells out who the development team is, including the applicant, the site owner, council, permitting attorney, the engineering and traffic and architectural consultants, as well as the housing consultant. You opened your hearing on June 6, 2022. The board members who were present at that first meeting are eligible to vote on the application. The hearing was continued and finally, on numerous occasions, and finally you closed the public hearing on July 17th, 2023. Peer review was conducted as well, so tonight you will deliberate and vote. There are conditions set forth in section 4. The record is reflected on page 5, 6, 7, oh, got it. The findings start on page 8, and there are 11 separate findings. So the decision is for you to vote on. 33 of the units, 25%, will be designated affordable housing for those residents earning a maximum of 80% of the area median income as prescribed by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. The conditions of the decision are included at page 11, and they run all the way through to page 18. Attachment A to the decision is the list of requested exemptions, exceptions, and waivers from the applicable City of Peabody ordinances and regulations for the 10 Wright Residences LLC, and they number in total of 13. And then there are applications of the Wetlands River Protection Regulations, the rules and regulations regarding the subdivision of land, and the code of the City of Peabody. So essentially, the units, this is reflected in the conditions, the units will be, there will be 196 total bedrooms. There will be 132 residential apartment-style rental units, 4 studio units, 78 one-bedroom units, 36 two-bedroom units, and 14 three-bedroom units located in 2 buildings connected by a connector bridge with a combination of garage and exterior parking. And there are 7 accessible units proposed. So unless you have questions for me, questions for Mr. Panos or his client, it's up to you to discuss and then vote. You have a busy agenda, so I'm not going to go through the whole 40-page decision.
Do we have any questions on the decision as it was presented and as it is written?
No, it appears to reflect the subject from all the meetings.
So we have everything in front of us. Hearing none, the matter, no other questions or comments, the matter is before the board.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Keith,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Barry, Stephen,
Yes.
Fran.
Yes, we have one more 40B that is approved for the City of Peabody. Thank you, Attorney Seligson, for all you've done. Thank you, Attorney Panos.
Thank you.
The board needs to sign.
If I could take a moment and thank the board for the decision tonight and for your thoughtful deliberations throughout more than a year of hearings. We really appreciate it, and we think this is going to be a great development for the downtown. Thank you.
So we're passing this around. We are going to now do the continued application of Gabulary Development, care of Attorney Kelty. First, we need to accept the correspondence into the record. And Secretary will read, you have them? Yep. The dates and the names of the people who have put in letters of opposition.
So I'm just going to put this in the form of a motion to accept the following correspondence into the record. July 21st, 2023, Captain Dowling memo. August 14th, 2023, Adenolfi letter of opposition. August 14th, 2023, Manette letter of opposition. August 15th, 2023, Pachowiak letter of opposition. August 15th, 2023, O'Brien letter in opposition. August 15th, 2023, Powers letter in opposition. August 15th, 2023, Upham letter in opposition. August 17th, 2023, Harness letter in opposition. August 17th, 2023, Gordon letter in opposition. August 17th, 2023, Heffy second letters in opposition. August 17th, 2023, Sirocco letter in opposition. August 19th, 2023, Hamilton letter in opposition. August 21st, 2023, Hrysenko letter of opposition. August 23rd, 2023, Mullen letter in opposition. August 28th, 2023, Sakai letter in opposition. August 28th, 2023, Mangarati second letter in opposition. August 29th, 2023, Lowy second letter in opposition. August 29th, 2023, Reardon Gordon letter in opposition. August 29th, 2023, McKenna letter in opposition. August 29th, 2023, Weber letter of opposition. August 29th, 2023, Bashir letter in opposition. August 30th, 2023, Gravani letter in opposition. August 31st, 2023, Greiglich second letter in opposition with notes. August 31st, 2023, Turner letter in opposition. September 6th, 2023, Hegan letter in opposition. September 8th, 2023, Kelty hardship memo. September 11th, 2023, Vallis letter in opposition. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, those are now accepted. Before you begin, it seems with all these letters in opposition, there still seems to be grave concerns with the size, density, traffic, public safety, lack of hardship, and privacy. At this point, Attorney Kelty, I'll give it to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. John Kelty, law offices at 40 Lowell Street, Peabody, Massachusetts. And since our last active meeting here before the board, we've had occasion to meet on site for a site visit, and then also we did hold a meeting with our neighbors at the Huntington Wood condominium. And I'd like to bring Jeff Smetana up to the microphone. Jeff had spoken to the board previously, and he'd like to bring you up to date with respect to our deliberations following testimony from questions from the board, and also hearing from our neighbors at Huntington Wood. And with that, Jeff.
This is the previous plan. So good evening, my name is Jeff Smetana. I'm with the United Group of Companies. Gabulary Development, which is the applicant here, is a subsidiary entity of ours. We're based in Troy, New York. And I wanted to start this evening where we left off last time. And the comments that were made, reiterated, that were discussed last time were correct in terms of density and some other issues. We had proposed a project that we thought fit really well on the site and was doable here, and we felt like it was a number at which we could really make this work. And to try to reduce from there, at the time we felt that that would have been a real challenge. But listening to the board, going back to our ownership group, and them really liking this community, liking this site, liking this project, wanting to figure out a way that we could be responsive, asked us to take a hard look and see what we could do. I had passed along all of your comments and to our group, and they understood it was a challenge. We met with the neighbors. We listened to their comments as well, which were similar to what they had expressed when they were here. The most significant issue just generally being the size and the density of the project. So going back through and working on what we could do to address that matter of density, we came up with a project internally that reduced the project to 138 units. And the way we did that is on that southern end, on the left side of the page, we took off 2 stacks of apartments on either side of the corridor. So we took off 8 apartments and shortened the building by more than 40 feet. And we added some additional parking there on the southern end of the building. So we effectively doubled the required setback, added additional parking, and by adding parking, we also improved the parking ratio. So we had originally proposed a parking ratio of 1.15 spaces, which I'd said our normal ratio would be more like 1.1. So we went from 1.5 to 1.25, so we thought worked really well. So I presented this to our ownership group, and they asked me, said, do you think this is a project that the board and the city would approve? And kind of going back through everything we heard, I told him, says, I'm not sure. And my challenge there was say, okay, come up with a plan that is as responsive as we can possibly be. So we were locked into other issues in terms of site costs and land price. We went to the land seller and asked them to be part of the solution here and said, look, there are all kinds of off-site costs that we have, stormwater costs that we have in terms of managing it all on site, and land price, and work with them to see what they could do as well. And then our group making the concessions that we could make in terms of saying what is something that we could do that we could stand here and think we're really being extremely responsive. So that plan we took off an additional 10 units, took off 2 more stacks of these units, so we shortened the building by another 40 feet, moving it further away from the Huntington Wood neighborhood. We would now be over 300 feet from the closest house. So this is 128 units. The parking ratio now would be like 1.4. So that's more than what we feel we need, but a little extra parking is not the worst thing. It also gives us plenty of space to address some of the other items that were addressed in terms of snow management, visitors, and whatnot. I think we can be very comfortable with this resident group in terms of really having enough parking. So in terms of the comments from the residents, largely associated with density and proximity, and the comments from the board, I think this makes a significant reduction so that we're now to the point where it's a moderate-sized project. We feel we can make work. We're further away from the neighborhood. We have more parking. We have more space to accommodate some of our general services, and up to a 1.4 parking ratio. So that's how we listened to the board and came up with the absolute minimum number. I think people understand that there are fixed costs associated with any project, with a senior project in particular, because you do have staffing requirements that you need to meet. So lowering units, you can't lower half a person or 25% of a person. So this is where we thought we could get. And also, something I mentioned last time too that I think is important to keep in mind are some of the goals that the city has established itself with its own housing study that was done in 2021, the housing production plan, that spoke to the need for more housing in the community, that the city needed to be more open-minded about ways to create more housing, suggested things like greater density, suggested things like a lot of the smart growth strategies that we spoke about last time, building near existing infrastructure, creating mixed-use communities where you're transitioning from commercial to multifamily to single-family, and also the need how the community is aging. There's a need for senior housing, but at the same time, there aren't sufficient opportunities for younger families. So our community draws from, or our project draws from the community where we're based. Majority of these residents are current residents of Peabody, It'll be their first time downsizing, the first time moving out of their homes, so they're freeing up housing stock. They're freeing up single-family homes for new home buyers to buy, but at the same time retaining them here in the community. So we think that's an important smart growth strategy. It's this, nationwide, but certainly here in Massachusetts and here in Peabody. I think it's just a smart way to approach an issue and a challenge to the community that benefits a lot of the residents. So in terms of that, as how we went from the end of the last meeting to what we'd like to talk about now, I wanted to explain what we're proposing to you this evening, and then let Jack kind of go through the technical part of how we would like to propose this to you tonight.
Thanks. So we had heard a criticism and commentary from both board members and from our neighbors about our density. And I began to look at other projects here in the city of Peabody, and it's kind of interesting that the projects that are of similar or greater density are also age-restricted facilities and elderly facilities that were built, some as far back as 2000, some in the year 2000, for instance. The Penelope House, which is at Central Street in Peabody, is at 48 units on just 2.06 acres. Peabody House here at the Peabody House is on Wallace Street, and it is on 1.60 acres, and it has 140 units, which gives it a density of some 70+ units per acre. The Fairweather Apartments here on Central Street are 88 units on less than an acre, which is giving them 88 units, more than 88 units per acre. So it would seem that this is maybe something that this Board of Appeals has never looked at a density in this fashion or given a number that would result in doubling of the recommended density. But there are many instances here in the city where we've exceeded the density that we're proposing, and they are all at lower parking ratios. One of the other comments that we heard loud and clear was for us to remove the pool hall. I have pictures of what the pool hall was like and now what it's like removed, if that's something that you don't want to accept. All they are is pictures.
No, I don't want to accept them, but so, correct me if I'm wrong, they tore it down, but they didn't take away the debris.
Didn't take away the what?
The debris, the rubble.
They're in the process of removing the debris. Much of the debris is contains asbestos, so there is a specific place that has to go to, and we've got to we've got to have haulers that will take it to that specific place. So it is leaving the premises.
We don't have a date.
Jim, do we know when it'll be hauled off? They're doing it daily, and we should be finished in a matter of 10 days, if not less. Or we are comfortable with our parking ratios. We're very comfortable with the fact that we've been able to move away from our neighbors at Huntington Woods to the tune of some 320 feet now is our closest corner to their closest structure. We're pleased to discuss the matter further. We're hoping for a vote this evening. We are of the opinion that we have taken seriously the comments from our neighbors and from the board. We have worked hard at changing the approach of the applicant from one of, this is the number of units that we need to make this happen, and as such, Jeff Smetana took the time to work on both the seller and our acquisition costs, in addition to working at how we could make this a better project with better parking, increased area of landscaping, increased snow storage, all of which were issues that the board had brought to light in our meetings and during testimony. We're happy to answer any questions you may have. Our variance remains the same, but for the number of, with respect to our offsets, with respect to one of our roadways adjacent to the Peterson property, we have asked for a small variance there, and we're happy to say that we're underway with respect to the improvements that are required in the Peterson property. As the board may be aware, there was a piece of a carved out piece of property being occupied by Peterson and his predecessors in title that they had been occupying for a period of 20 years, in excess of 20 years. So as such, rather than fight about adverse possession, we were able to carve off that piece and deed it to Mr. Peterson as an addition to his premises, and that is the particular area where our roadway comes fairly close to where his property line and the fence and a wall are all going to be. So with that, we're happy to answer questions that the board may have in further discussion, and with that, I'll let the board.
So, Attorney Kelty, wasn't there a stipulation a while ago about a retaining wall for that against that Peterson property?
Yes,
And?
and we're going to build it.
I didn't hear that part.
Oh, I just said we're underway in beginning in providing the fence on top of the wall and the retaining wall that'll be necessary for us to develop the property in back. We long ago deeded him the parcel.
Go ahead.
So, speaking to the board and the public, I don't think it's a surprise. I've spoken on this before. I like this use. I do like these uses. I think they're very necessary uses in the community. This project came to us with real high density. We did ask for them to go back in good faith and reduce that density. They did. Did they get right to the number I would hope for? No. No, I think it's still a little bit large. But if you are going to increase density, it would be in the Route 1 corridor. We have a lot of dense projects in residences, so there's a lot to deliberate here. There's a ton to deliberate. I'm just going to be honest, I'm torn. I like the use. If you are going to increase density, that's the corridor for it. We've got precedent of doing it in residential neighborhoods. I do think some good faith was extended, but it's going to be hard to deliberate on this in one day. And I'd like to hear from residents who possibly submitted letters in opposition already to the prior numbers, just to see if they think any differently.
So I just want to...
We're not open yet, but we're deliberating, and then we'll call upon.
Oh, wow. I just want to comment on your Route 1 corridor comment. So, correct me if I'm wrong. So you think that if this is built because it's on Route 1, it won't make that much difference in traffic?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen many of these studies doing this, and a Dunkin' Donuts gives you 700 times the traffic a residence like this does. Nobody cares about a Dunkin' Donuts, so.
So here's the thing that comes to my mind. You have Route 1, you have 95, and then you have Winona Street just about right there. And yeah, you got a Dunkin' Donuts a little further up too, but you also have a Honeydew. My personal opinion is Route 1, 95, Winona Street. It's hard enough to get off of Winona to get onto Route 1. Most of the time, you're on that breakdown lane and trying to move over. Now you've got 180 units, which are starting to be built coming out. Okay, look, I don't know how many people are going to come out in the morning. Nobody else does, so I don't want somebody to tell me statistically they know what it is. If this gets built, 55 and over, people still work. I also don't want to hear that they're going to be 70 and over and they don't work. So you've got this project, you've got the 180 unit, you've got Winona Street, you've got Route 1, and you've got 95, all congregating just about right there, not to mention that 180 unit that's starting to get built is also going to house school children. So you're going to have the school buses coming in and out. The last thing I would ever want is, say, a school bus coming out, that school bus has got to make a wide turn. Even if it doesn't make a wide turn, it has to go on that breakdown lane, and somebody's going to be, I think, my opinion, in a hurry to get to Boston to go to work. The last thing I would want to think is that there's going to be a school bus accident. I wouldn't want it, you wouldn't want it. That's my opinion, but I think that opinion is pretty well factual, because that's a very good possibility that something like that could happen. Those school buses, you know, that's a hard turn. And unfortunately, right where that everything comes out, because of Winona Street and 95 and Route 1, it's a lot of congestion traffic just to get up to that jug handle. So that's all I want to say on that comment.
Through the chair, if I could. Well, first of all, thank you for taking our comments and making some changes. I really appreciate that. I don't know if there's enough change to satisfy myself. I can remember back, and I do have a history, of when we wrote the zoning. I was on the council when we did zoning, and it was painstaking. And it was at a time when Peabody was being developed at a pace even faster than it's being developed now. And great pains were taken to try to get that zoning ordinance correct. We would sit there and debate one word, one phrase, one sentence, one definition at a time for hours. So I know that zoning ordinance was developed to have Peabody be developed the way we want it. That 25 acres was not just thrown out there as a magical number, a whimsical number. It was what we talked about for days on end as to when these developments come, how do we restrict them? And I'll be honest, we tried to cut them down. We were being developed like you wouldn't believe. So I take that 25 acre very seriously. And I have a very difficult time to think that the city thinks that we should put that size of a development on those 4 acres. I have a hard time with that, because I know the work that was done when we did zoning. Now, if the city feels that way, fine. Change the zoning ordinance. Do an overlay. Do something. But to me, we're almost bastardizing the zoning ordinance for the sake of one project, and that's not how it should be done. The city has to decide how they want to develop their land. I have some sort of say. It's bad enough we don't have an awful lot of say when it comes to 40B. You guys are right next to it at 40B. Nothing we can do about that. But we can do something about limiting the size of a project that's going to be right next door, that's going to add on to the burden that 40B project is going to be. I'm not here to debate whether we need housing. It's pretty obvious we need housing. But Peabody doesn't have to bear the burden. You know, just because there's a spare 4 acres hanging around Peabody, so we don't have to put 100 units on there. It's not a Peabody responsibility. It's a people responsibility.
And let's not forget, in about 3 to 4.5 years, if all the 40Bs get built, we ready? We're going to have over 500 apartments
Right.
that need to be filled.
Now, I'm not here to criticize this project. As a matter of fact, it's just too big in my mind. And would it be too big if it wasn't next door to that 40B? Probably not. Be a great project, I think. You'd have more land to hold on to. You're not going to get any more land. No one wants it. It's contaminated. No one's going to take that other land. It's going to stay just the way it is. Maybe we'll get a good-looking fence there that you can drive by when you drive out to that rotary. I don't know.
Not to interrupt you, Barry, but a thought just came to me. So you're right, you've got contamination where the billiard parlor just got torn down, and you've got contamination at the detention pond?
Well, no. Well, that's the flumes that go. But I mean,
It goes
I
through.
understand it's underground. It's not going to be.
Yeah, but
of
wait
any
a minute,
concern, but it's there.
isn't that some sort of,
I don't know. But all I'm saying is, does it fit? I don't know. Listen, I'll be willing to talk to anybody. I mean, I'm not. But right now, I just can't see the two projects going in there together. I'm sorry. A great effort to reduce it. People that know me know I would love to let anybody do whatever they wanted, but this doesn't make any sense to me. There's just no room for it.
So-
all those cars coming out, that rotary, wonderful, but you're sharing that with two projects. All coming out on one road, and it's not very big, I can tell you. And maybe, like the chairperson said, maybe there's not going to be a lot of cars in the morning, but I think there's going to be enough that they're going to be queuing up to get out there on Route 1 at some stage. But I'm willing to deliberate with the board and think about this, but I'm not really going to be ready to vote on it today. I mean, I think I like the fact they reduced it. I like to take a look at, like to hear from some of the residents as to that reduction. They're the ones that are going to be affected by it the most, and see what happens.
So, ladies and gentlemen, what you're witnessing right now is the only time we're allowed to deliberate, so that's when all these ideas get out there. We're not allowed to deliberate aside from
Right.
this forum. So we don't get to talk to each other about this, and that's why all these ideas come out now. So what you're hearing is really good governmental deliberation, just so you know.
And on that note, just as a point of information, on 4.39 acres, which is what is there, by right, by zoning right, it's 66 apartments. I don't know if anybody realized that, but what really is allowed is 66 apartments. If this was an individual wanting an addition, for a variance of this, would we allow it? I doubt it. I doubt it very, very much. In addition to, you come before the board for a variance, and you really should have a hardship. In reality, there's no legal hardship here, not that I could see. 55 and over, is it needed in the city? Everybody says it's needed in the city. Maybe because I haven't reached 55 yet. But 55 and over people can live in some of the other apartments that are getting built. And I'm going way out on a limb here, but the 55 and over, in my opinion, should have been built at J.B. Thomas Hospital, and that ship sailed a long time ago. However, I agree with Barry as far as going to the council, changing the zoning. Okay, that would be an easy fix. I also feel that this is a big project, like I said before, for the space that is that's there. I personally not sure at this point right now that it would work. I think that the zoning board itself has to take a really close look at what is given, what is required, what is the zoning laws, And if in fact we feel it's too big, then so be it. Because if we start approving things that are so big, and I do appreciate the effort that went into making it smaller, I just think that it's too big in a little parcel with another large apartment building going up. The entire integrity of this board is right now on the line. And I say that to all of you because you have to think realistically and law ordinance-wise, not, oh, okay, this is great. They diminished, they took away 18 units. That's great. You took down 18 units. But at the end of the day, 66 are allowed. Can you give us 90? Can you give us 90 units? 90 units might look sort of cute right there. Obviously not, because your bottom line right now was 128. I'd like to hear from other members of the board and obviously the neighbors, but yeah, you know where I stand.
Through the chair. Since day one, I've been on the fence with this project, more leaning towards seeing it as a good fit up there. It's important for us to remember that we have two 40Bs still in limbo out there. If either of those or both of those get the plug pulled, you know, a 40B up in that chunk of land is probably more than 128 units.
So let me just address that. If this were not to go through and somebody applied for a 40B, I believe we, Carla, are in safe harbor? We are at our 10%, so we don't have to approve it. And just say we went below the 10%, then unfortunately, once again, it comes to our lap, but we can condition, you know what I want to say, really condition, I don't know how to say it, diplomatically, a lot. You know, so everybody says, oh, and I don't mean this against you, Chris, because you're not the only one. Oh, if you know, you better watch out, another 40B, another 40B. Yeah, do we need another 40B in Peabody? No. However, if in fact, which I don't think it would, but if it ever happened, we then have the jurisdiction to condition, 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 condition.
Again, I appreciate the efforts of the developer and the legal team. You know, this is a tough one. Obviously, it's the zoning is the zoning, and I respect my brother Barry over here for his words about that zoning, all that language. I'm sure that was not fun to do. Maybe it's something the city needs to look at. I will say I'm still on the fence with this one, leaning towards a support at this point. And obviously, I want to hear from the neighbors. I think Barry mentioned it. You know, has any of their views changed here in this reduction?
Just wanted to speak to a couple of issues. One is the land that is contaminated, that can be developed. It's just that it's not at all good land for residential development, but commercial development would allow a capping and the monitoring, continued monitoring of the contaminants, and that's what's been going on for about the last 12 or 14 years. So it's likely to be, those parcels of land are likely to be developed, but not by a residential user. With regard to a little bit of a background, CCRC is an allowed use in the BR1 zoning district. CCRC is unto itself requires 25 acres. I was the attorney on behalf of Erickson Retirement Communities, who were the developers of Brooksby Village. At the time, when we approached the then administration, Pete Teresian's administration, we were able to locate the parcel of land, which happened to be 25 plus acres. Much of it was being quarried. It was Donnie Innes's land. He was using it as part of his cement and construction business. And there were only, at that time, there were only about 3, maybe 4 parcels of land that were 25 acres. One of them being land owned by Salem Country Club, another being land owned by Mr. Solomini, and that eventually became the development, which is 100 and some odd units on top of, above Browns Pond. So part of the design, the actual zoning ordinance was brought to the city by my clients and was tailor-made for a 25-acre parcel. So that presents a little history with respect to, you know, how this came about. In the BR1 zoning district, at least in the stretch from Winona to Lake, there is no residence allowed. We are not able to utilize the residential overlay district as a means of developing residential property. And the reason that we had chosen to seek variance from the requirements of CCRC is that this acreage is only the 4-point-plus acreage, and we are we don't have another means other than 40B, which my clients did not want to approach the city as a CCRC 40B, which has been done. Linden Ponds, the other Erickson retirement community in Massachusetts, that's a 40B development on the South Shore. So we did find cases wherein you can do CCRCs by virtue of the utilization of 40B, but in this instance, we didn't see the necessity. So that is why we came to the Zoning Board of Appeals seeking variance for our acreage, predominantly our acreage. Is there? Did you want to go to the neighbors next?
I just wanted to say that
We'll get a summary too.
I just wanted to say that you know, you said it is likely that somebody's going to build on the land of the billiard parlor and
Not residential.
not so, but until you have somebody that actually is going to do it, you can't say it's likely. I could say it's likely going to snow tomorrow. Until it does, you don't know that.
Oh. Did you want to?
Yeah. I just wanted to explain further a little bit about our project, how it fits into this discussion. This is technically a 55 plus is the age restriction, but we're really not a 55 plus community. Within the housing industry, there are certain types of senior housing, 55 plus, active adult, independent living, assisted living, nursing homes, memory care, and they all fit into that those categories, and they all represent something different. As an active adult, although we're 55 plus, our residents are in their 70s and 80s. One of our residents wouldn't, say, sell their home and move into one of these other apartment communities you're talking about, say one of these 40B communities, or into the Trammell Crow community. Someone living here in a home in Peabody wouldn't sell their home and move into Trammell Crow. They would sell their home and move into our project because of what it represents in terms of the services and the lifestyle that we're offering. And also talking about the housing needs in the In the city, these 40Bs create more rental units, but your own housing production plan talks about the need for single-family homes. And that's really a more significant challenge. And again, our community will draw people out of single-family homes. So we are creating new single-family homes availability, where if the Trammell Crow property, someone is not going to sell their home and move there, at least not likely. So we are offering the city another dimension to its housing stock and housing plan. And you could say it's not the city's problem to solve the housing crisis. Well, it is to address the cities, and the Worcester Zone Production Plan does talk about all these things, about the need for single-family homes, the need to provide more opportunities for new young home buyers, and the need to provide senior housing. We manage over 50 properties, over 10,000 units of senior housing. So we understand who our residents are. They are in their 70s and 80s. We know how many of them will have cars. We know how much they'll drive. We have a shuttle that we operate for a reason, because a lot of our residents don't like to drive. Many of them won't own cars. So I think a lot of the discussion on traffic from where we know from 50 other communities, while some residents sometimes may work, they may be part-time workers, generally they're not commuting into Boston. But we do think our housing does offer something unique that's different than everything else you've discussed, and we do feel like it is something that's really needed here in the community. We looked hard for sites in Peabody. We didn't find any other available land. As Jack was pointing out, the CCRC requirement of 25 acres is not a 25-acre parcel. So there couldn't be a CCRC in the city. So when that was done, the housing situation, the community demographic situation, it was different. But that's an antiquated policy at this point. So we just think those are important considerations as you think about what does this really mean to the community, and really what does it offer, because it is somewhat different than the other housing opportunities that are going on in the community.
And I appreciate all of that, and everything you say is correct and good information, but you're here for dimensional relief, and it sounds like you're selling a product, which yeah, I guess you are, but all the little wonderful things that are going to go on in this 55 and over, that's great, but you're here for dimensional relief. Want to hear from the neighbors? Okay, so let me just tell the neighbors, come up, name and address for the record. If you gave a letter in opposition, we don't need to hear from you unless you have something to add. If the first 5 people come up and say something and the next 5 people want to say the exact same thing, just come up and give your name and address for the record. Please don't repeat yourself. We have a long agenda. We want to hear from everybody, but we don't need repetitions. Gabish? Okay, let's go. First, let's go.
Not that I want to be first. Okay. Good evening, Madam Chairperson and members of the ZBA. My name is Gwendolyn Tyree. I live at 4901 Heatherwood Lane. I am the chairperson of the Board of Trustees at Huntington Wood. I did send a letter in opposition on June 1st. However, I respectfully request the board to add my July 26th email, a second letter in opposition, which was not mentioned this evening. So I respectfully request that. I would like to say preliminarily that I've been a lawyer for 43 years, and I spent 22 of those years on the bench. So I understand the difficulty of making the right decision. I'm not going to repeat the opposition that I stated. I'm going to say this. There is other property in Peabody, or at least there will be at the end of this year, since Rousselot, I believe, is not going to renew, and there are over 300 acres there. And there won't be any issues regarding acreage or size. They can build 3 CCRCs over in that area if they want to at that time. The second thing I wanted to mention was the petitioner has said that the homeowners at Huntington Wood are primarily concerned with size and density. They are major problems. But in addition, we're concerned about noise. We're concerned about where those people will walk. They can't walk on Route 1. It's too dangerous, as Madam Chairperson pointed out. They will go 300 feet to our property, and the mention was 300 feet from their property to our building. I'm not sure if that means building to building or if that means property line to property line. I'm not sure what that means. And if we had the courtesy of getting some of these updates from the petitioner ahead of time, we certainly would have been in a better position to evaluate the proximity issue. The other issue we have is runoff, noise. 1.5 parking spaces for 128 or 129 units is not enough. Most families have 2 cars. It's a CCRC. It does not accommodate parking for home health aides, visiting nurses, and other medical collateral professionals who come in to service the people who live there, nor does it accommodate emergency vehicles. So if they're not going to park there, where are they going to park? They're going to come on Lake Street. They might find all the great parking at Huntington Wood, which really doesn't exist. Finally, I want to say that our primary concern was not only size and density. It's a diminution in value of our property. We don't have the density. We don't have the noise. Huntington Wood is truly one of the bucolic areas of Peabody. And walking through there is like walking in a park. And we spend a lot of money in our HOA fees and the like to maintain that. But if we have the CCRC there coupled with, as Madam Chair pointed out, the 40B development, it's not that kind of neighborhood anymore. It just isn't. And for those reasons, in addition to all of the reasons that I stated in my 2 letters of opposition on behalf of the owners, we are still opposing even the reduced size. Thank you.
Next. Who's next? Somebody's got to be next. Okay. Sir, I believe you spoke before, right?
Yes.
You're not going to repeat anything, right?
Not anything I did before, but I'm going to ask the whole board. I sent an email, and I especially directed it to you and the mayor and the board, but I only had certain email addresses, so Carla registered it. I added some notes on mine. Those notes are very important, and they back up exactly what our chairperson of our trust says.
Could you say your name again?
Stanley Griglick, Huntington Wood, 4503 Deerfield Circle. So I did calculations and estimations on those notes of parking with the existing 146 units. And with that, I mean, estimating I just want to repeat a few of the things. There's 72 one-bedroom units, 74 two-bedroom units. If they only use 75% of those with one vehicle, that's 54 spaces. If they have 74 units with 2 bedrooms and they only utilize 25% of those people have a second vehicle, but the rest of them still have another vehicle, that's 92 spaces. That equals the entire parking space that they have other than the other 22 from the 168. So, and again, I don't see any provision, this I didn't have in my notes, for EV vehicles and charging stations, which is another thing I think they're going to be challenged with. But that leaves basically, with those estimates, 40%, that would leave 29 visitors And I estimated that visitors would have 3 intervals in the day of 3-hour periods. So they need a minimum of 10 visitor parking spaces additional. That's just for visitors. And that's the 1-bedroom units. The 2-bedroom units will need an additional 3 visitors per spaces for 3 intervals a day. Those are just very low estimates, keeping it down low. Okay? So the total estimate, they need 13 additional visitor spaces from the 22. That leaves them only 9 spaces left. Where's the staff going to be? Where are all the other vehicles, vendors, management, healthcare, service trucks, ambulances, EMT, handicapped service vehicles, shuttles, and especially, I didn't see any fire lanes on the drawings. That's a significant thing to not even have on the drawing. I know he had probably the fire commissioner come and look at the land, but I'd be surprised if he somehow missed fire lanes, because fire lanes are necessary for any kind of large facility. I'm in my 70s. I would never want to live in a place like this. I can tell you that. But we got to stick to the point of the variances. And I think that this petition is just overstepping the bounds. Mr. Kelty mentioned some of the previous situations. Regulations change in our state. Things improve because our community, our state government, federal government, they come up with guidelines. The cities and municipalities pick up on those, and they expand on those. And that's why we're here today in the 20th century, 2023. Regulations have changed. There might have been things that let go before, but they're different today. And that's what you're supporting. That's what you're protecting for not only just our community in Huntington, but for all the residents in the city of Peabody. So that's why I mentioned it. I think they're overstepping their bounds. They're stretching, the limitations. And I understand the cost considerations. They have a bottom line they have to try to meet in all their investment. But this type of community really is not welcome. But more importantly, it just doesn't fit the area where it is on Route 1. It's not safe. There's no public transportation. I would not want to live on Winona Street, because on that corner where that outlet that you also mentioned, Chairperson, it's going to be deadly. There's traffic coming inbound from Winona to go into the coffee shop there, the Honeydew and another business there. I can imagine the influx of the 180-unit people, plus the school buses and everything else, trying to come through, and then with traffic bound on Route 1, trying to squeeze out on Winona and still trying to come around. It's a traffic nightmare, it really. I'm surprised the 180 units got in there, but I understand 40B has a lot more advantages. So I think it's pretty significant impact in the area for everyone. And all I could say is I think they're challenging your integrity as well as a part of our municipal government to do the right thing for the people of the city of Peabody and all its residents. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
How's it going? Ryan Cox, 11 Hamrick Road, and I'm in opposition. The one thing I want to touch base on is the 25 acres. It's there for a reason. I feel if this was to go through with that variance allowed, it sets a bad precedent. You guys have been dealing with 40Bs. This is going to be the new thing that you guys are dealing with. I think it's too big. I do understand that they reduced it some. I would like to see the drawings. Did they submit that, or is it just verbal?
That is something I was going to ask for, Ryan.
Okay, so the other questions I have, utilities. Where are utilities being brought in? What neighbors are going to be impacted by that? Also, I don't even know if this could be done, but if they were to reduce it and you guys were to approve it, to maybe put some conditions in, that the 2 parcels in front can't be residential. That if they say that it's 70 plus, make it 70 plus. I don't know if that can be done. No? Okay, it's a good idea. Okay. So that's, I just think it's still too large, and I think it sets a bad precedence if it's approved. Thank you.
Anybody else? Right now? Okay.
My name is Dave Gaffey. I live at 3504 Woodbridge in Huntington Wood, and I want to go on record as an opponent to this project. One thing that young lady failed to mention was the fire trucks coming up Wynoma. There's also a limousine company now on Route 1 with 25 passenger buses and SUVs and Sprinters that are going to cut across Route 1. Variances, are there 4 or 5? I heard the gentleman mention another variance tonight, so is it 4 or 5 that they're seeking? Okay. When these guys came to the clubhouse at Huntington Wood a couple weeks ago, at the July meeting, you asked them to modify their plan. They presented the same exact plan, no modifications. They heard the opposition from the owners there, and I think they circled back, come back tonight, they scaled it back a little, okay? But I don't think they satisfied you, and I know they certainly, excuse me, they certainly didn't satisfy the residents of Huntington Wood. I can say that feeling pretty good. This is going to affect our quality of life. It's going to affect the safety of the community. There's going to be a potential downgrade of the property values. I spent my life working for my house. I'm happy there, it's quiet there. I don't want someone from a different zip code coming into Peabody, digging a hole, building a building, walking out of here with a big check. Okay? Last point. At none of these deliberations did either the lawyer or the developer mention philanthropy. When they come into a town and they're going to walk away with millions of dollars, you think they would come up with a little sweetener for the town or for the board. So for the record, who's ever taken notes here, I have some suggestions for the developer. $125,000 to Peabody Police Benevolent Association. $125,000 to Local 925, the Peabody firefighters. $125,000 to Peabody West Little League. $125,000 to be split between the Girl Scouts of Peabody and the Brownies of Peabody. I want to get those little girls a piece of the action. $125,000 to Peabody Institute Library. And $125,000 to Huntington Wood Association for any future damage that we may have to recover to protect our property. And for the lawyer, because you're going to be a good corporate citizen, John, you can cop up $50,000 from your law firm. I hope that's all on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a first. Are there anybody else tonight that would like to speak? Okay. In favor or in opposition? Anybody in favor or in opposition?
I don't know where to begin after that fiasco. First of all, my name is Dave Gamache. I live at 252 Newbury Street. I represent Ward 5, which this is in. I had a few small odds and ends to add to this, but it seems like it got a little out of control. First of all, I want to ask...
Dave, this has not gone out of control.
In my opinion, it has, and you can have your opinion. Okay, I'd like to continue. You just approved a 40B for 132 units. My question is, could have you denied that? No, and I'd like to know why.
Okay, I said this before, so I'll say it again. We get a developer that comes in, and he speaks to the administration about putting in a 40B. And the administration says, you know, this sounds pretty good, let's go for it. He then goes to the state. We live in a state that loves 40Bs. He goes for a comprehensive permit. The state comes, checks everything out. This is a great place for a 40B. 10 out of 10 times, they're going to tell you it's a great place for a 40B. They get their approval from the state. It now comes to us. It doesn't go to the council. It doesn't go to the planning board. It comes to us. The best we can do on a 40B is condition it, make it the best we can make it, because it is virtually impossible to deny a 40B. We denied Oak Street. We thought we had every single T crossed, I dotted. We had all our really, really, really good facts and reasons why we could deny it. We denied it unanimously. It went back to the state. The state said, go back and make some concessions. So we had lawyers on the builder side, we had lawyers on the city side, we had myself, Carla, community development, the mayor, we all had meetings because we had to make some concessions because the state wanted it approved. And we did, and we came up with an even better plan. However, it hasn't started yet. But at the end of the day, it is almost impossible to deny a 40B. We had flooding, we had everything under control, and we still couldn't deny it. So there's your answer.
I understand that. I totally understand that. But was it classified as a friendly 40B?
Yes.
Okay. That's all I really wanted to know. And that was 69 units per acre. I just want to throw that out there. The board wanted to see a reduction from the July meeting. They've reduced it. In some people's minds, they haven't reduced it enough. I do want to get to the last senior housing project that was built in the city of Peabody. It was on Central Street. Penelope House with on 98 Central Street with 48 units on 1.98 acres or 2 acres, whatever you want to call it. 25 units per acre. Literally no green space. It had a setback of 12.5 feet to the 5 residences in the rear. It had very little landscape, and the only landscape they got was because they had to grass the detention area across the street from the parking lot. They have 51 parking spaces in probably the most trafficked area in the city of Peabody, Central Street. Okay, in a neighborhood, they plopped it in. Now, on the plans that I've researched, it dedicated 1 parking spot per unit, 1. They've got 51 total. So that was 2002. 2002 was the last senior housing project we had in the city of Peabody. That's disgraceful, okay? You grew up on Central Street.
Through the chair, who approved that project, Dave?
City Council did.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. And you know why? Because it's a good project. And I voted for it. And the reason why is the same reason why I'm standing here. Because it's a good project. It's not being plopped in a neighborhood. It's not being plopped on a 2-lane street where the cars can go left and right. They got one choice. They have to go right. Okay? It is in a developed area that has a rotary that's going to allow the traffic to go into this development. So we've taken out of the conception that they don't know how to drive because they're old. They're going to know how to drive. They can come out on Route 1, okay? And I'm going to say this, and you can boo me and you can do whatever you want, but there is a 155,000 square foot storage unit that is going to go on this lot. Let me give you a little information on that. They got a ticket to go in. The gate goes up if you're familiar with storage buildings. They're lit up 24 hours a day. People can go in there 24 hours a day. If you're familiar with storage units, a lot of the ones on the ground, they rent them for their cars so that they can work on their cars inside that unit. That's what's going to go next to you. And it's going to be a heck of a lot closer than this development's going to be. That being said, we approved Brunswick billiard parlors, and you were on the council, I think, when we did that. This was fought by all the neighbors, and Jack was probably against. No, Jack might have been in favor. One of the neighbors that's here tonight. The neighbors came out, and they were all upset about it. I didn't see many from Huntington Woods, I'll tell you that much right now. And that was right up against where this is going. Unfortunately, the market went south, and they didn't build it. So that's another little thing that we have to throw into this mess. I came, it's talking about 40Bs, I came to this board back in, I believe it was November last year. There were 3 residents from Huntington Woods that came out in opposition of a 180-unit 40B. And this gentleman right here was there, because I spoke to him that night. And I remember it like it was yesterday. 3 residents come out in opposition of 140, I'm sorry, at the time it was, I think, 220 units. So, there was nobody there for that. A much more detrimental unit size or anything like that. They never brought up the aspect of traffic going onto Route 1. This is going to have a fence in the buffer that somebody said they're going to walk through and walk into Huntington Woods. I doubt that's going to happen. Fire department, you have to get approval from the fire department prior to any building being built. It's just part of standard procedure. So as far as no fire lane or anything like that, that'll be addressed at the review process for the building. It's just, and I applaud the chair for bringing up J.B. Thomas. It very well should have been an elderly project. I mean, it was that close. And in fairness, that was the right move. But now we got a 40B tucked in there. Maybe. That being said, I just think that the best use for this property is not a storage unit. And for those 4 people that live direct abutters, if you think you're going to hear noise from people shutting their car doors at 8 o'clock at night when they're getting ready to go to bed, this is going to be much worse, because those bells go off if something happens to that gate. And I'm just telling you so that everybody knows and everybody understands, sometimes when you vote or you want a good project like this not to go, the owners of the property are going to come out and say, I want to develop my land. So they're going to put a use that is allowed. They don't have to come to the ZBA. They don't have to come to the city council. They come and do what they can do by right. And a storage unit of 155,000 square feet, 3 stories tall, is what is going to go there. So take it, I mean, things happen, it might not go there, but I've been told it's 90% that they're going to rehash this development and put that storage unit in. And I, as a ward councilor, feel that it is the worst thing to do. And with Rousselot going, this project alone will generate $500,000 in tax revenue. $500,000. Rousselot will lose in $3 million. There's no other developments coming, folks, that are going to generate this kind of money. So when taxes go up because we don't have enough revenue coming in, and you're throwing away $500,000 in easy revenue for a senior housing project, I just don't think it's right. And I want to thank the board for doing its due diligence, and I hope that you weigh all this stuff and consider the fact that this is a good use. It's a long time coming, and I just think that this in itself is the best thing we're going to get there. Thank you.
Okay, wait. Storage unit.
Yeah.
So I know that in the past, it was approved.
Yes.
For storage unit.
Yeah.
So, but they never went forward with that. What makes you think they're going to go forward now with it?
They didn't go forward with it because the owner of the property that wanted to develop it had other projects going on at the time.
But you know this because you know him personally?
Yes, I've spoken to the owner of the property, and yes, that is the reason why. And I want to bring it up so that people know, and it's 90% going to happen.
Okay, but wait, so if you don't mind, you brought it up.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do, well, it does. It has everything, I guess, to do with the project. So he was approved for the storage unit.
Yes.
And he never built it.
Correct.
If this doesn't go through, now he decides he's going to build it?
Yes.
Because he told you?
Yes.
Even if he doesn't build it, he's mentioning it will be a long class, but by right use doesn't come through anybody but permitting.
Right.
So someone else could come up and just do the same thing.
Right.
Yeah, so in other words, by right use, he's just going to come in and say, here's the plans, he'll go to site plan review, which has approved it already 5 years ago, and he's going to say, okay, I wanted to do something good for the city didn't allow it, I'm going to put the storage unit. It happened
I just want, and I don't want to keep interrupting you, but I'm of the mindset that you're saying it because...
You don't have to believe it.
No, it's not that I don't believe it, I don't, but...
I'm saying it
Unless
because
it's
I want this
actually-
project to go in, absolutely. But I want the neighbors to understand
That it's a possibility.
that it's a high probability that this will take place. Okay? And the last time that the neighbors kept arguing about something going on a piece of property was where the car wash is on Route 114, and the residents of Mount Pleasant kept saying no, no, no to everything. And what was an allowed use? A car wash with vacuums that they can turn on in the middle of the night. So I'm just letting you know. Again, I want to thank the board, and I hope that you do your due diligence. Thank you.
So for more clarification, if it becomes a non-residential use and they conform to setbacks, they don't need to talk to anybody. They can put up whatever structure meets the setbacks, and they have no density issues. So that's just the educational point. Not an opinion, that's just the educational point.
Yep.
Hi, my name is George Tecci. I'm here to represent the interest of Honeydew Donuts that operates at 130 Newbury Street and the parcel that abuts this proposed project. I'm here to express my support to that. It's kind of necessary for the economic future of the store, the way things are right now. Thank you.
Jack Irwin, 12 Winona Street, Peabody. I just wanted to reiterate what somebody else just said. I have it on fact that this is going to be a storage building if this project doesn't go through. I'm a direct abutter. I don't have 300 feet of trees in between me and this property. I have to see it.
Can I interrupt you just for 1 second? So
always
you live
do.
on
Go right
12
ahead.
Winona?
What's that?
You live on 12 Winona?
Yes.
Is that a blue house with a big
Yes.
garage on the side? Okay, so I know exactly where that house is?
Yeah.
Because you bought it from my relatives.
I don't care who I bought it for.
I don't care
I'm
either.
just telling you.
Yeah, I don't care,
I have
but
to
let
look
me
at it.
finish, please, sir? Because I don't care what you think of me, I don't think about
I
you at
don't-
all,
yeah.
okay? Here we go. Where you are on Winona Street, you are going to see more of the 180 units than you are of this.
Yep. That's
So-
right.
so you just
That's
said-
right. So what? I get to swap one nice-looking building for a
No, but you
tin
just
building
you
in
just
front of
said
my house?
that you just said that you're gonna see it. You're not even gonna see this.
Yes, I am going to see it.
Oh, you are.
Yes.
Okay.
No, I'm not done yet. As far as property values go, does your
Can
property
limit,
values
the chair
go up?
can limit who I want to hear, and right now you're done, sir. Thank you very much.
You heard that, right? That's on record.
Hi, I'm Heather Siegel from The Ultimate on 130 Newbury Street in Peabody. Okay, thank you. 130 Newbury Street in Peabody, the ultimate. A couple of things that I wanted to say. First of all, possibly more than anybody in this room, I'm around Winona Street constantly and Route 1. I'm at my store almost every day from early in the morning till late at night very often. And quite honestly, there isn't a lot of traffic. I go in and out of the gas station next door, in and out of Honeydew Donut, and I'm just around. I have family that live off Winona Street, and I don't see any traffic backups. I don't see any problems getting onto Route 1, and I'm there all hours of the day, pretty much 7 days a week. Another thing that I wanted to say is as far, I hear people talking about where these people are going to walk and about the parking problems. First of all, as far as walking, I think they've got it made. It's over 4 acres, so I'm sure there's going to be walking areas there. But how nice is it that you can walk from your property to Honeydew Donut or Dunkin' Donuts? There's a nail salon, there's a hair salon, there's the diner, there's a sub shop, a pizza shop. The ultimate. I mean, there's a lot of places for these people to walk to that they can shop, they can eat, they can sip, and they can socialize. Honeydew Donut, Dunkin' Donuts, those are places that people hang out for a long time, socialize with one another. As far as parking, it's life. I mean, building is going on everywhere, and there's limited parking in all these apartment buildings, anywhere and everywhere. You have a decision to make when you move into a place like that. If you have 6 cars and you're only allowed 1 spot, you either move there, deal with the other 5 cars, sell them or whatever you want to do, or you don't move there. I mean, anywhere in life that you go, there are restrictions and there's stipulations and there's parking issues. So I'm sure that whatever they're doing there and whatever they're allowing, the person that's thinking of moving in there, like I said, they have the option to move there or not move there. If it doesn't accommodate their needs, they don't have to go there. I'm also going to say, we don't live in a rural area. Hey, listen, I can sympathize with what everyone is saying here, but we do live in the city, and the cities grow, and people build, and projects come on board, and it's as simple as that, We didn't choose to move to Vermont or upstate Maine or the Berkshires or whatever. We chose to move to the city, and this is the kind of things that happen in the city. Last thing I want to say, I don't want a storage unit next to me. I have had 12 years of being there with a distressed property, with graffiti and just horribleness next door to us, and the thought of a beautiful, upscale, senior living place coming in there with nice residents and people that are going to take care of their properties. It's going to be maintained beautifully. I welcome that. I welcome it. And if there's a couple of extra cars, I'll deal with it, because that's what we deal with in life when we live in this city. I think I've said it. Thank you.
All right, anybody else in favor or in opposition? Okay.
Could I speak to a couple of the items that were raised? Just a couple points. And
Madam Chair, there's folks behind me talking, especially over here. It's very disturbing.
Okay. Please.
Well, thank you. And, as you said, this kind of open dialogue is great, and everyone having a chance to speak is really what all of this is all about. A lot of the folks, some of the concerns, are concerns that any community would have with new development, and a lot of them are more related to site plan review. As you know, things like, are there adequate utilities? Is there sufficient water or electric? Is it going to impact surrounding neighborhoods? We have to get well-served letters for all of those. That's a lot of scrutiny under the site plan review in terms of stormwater runoff, very significant stormwater management regulations that we need to follow. For fire access and emergency vehicles, that's a significant part of our site plan. We model through the fire trucks. We work with the fire marshal. We go through, make sure that they're going to get all of the hydrants and access and all of the staging areas that they, standpipes and whatever that they need. So I think that all those issues, a lot of those issues, they really won't be because you have a very good site plan review process. In terms of the site itself, I mean, it was an interesting history how we got involved. The property wasn't for sale. The property owner had been going through a process of developing it and actually had taken out and recompacted all the soil because it was a large fill site over the years. 300,000 yards of fill were brought in. So he'd gone through and done that. He'd spent money doing that. He was waiting for Trammell Crow to go on the back and for some of those environmental things to be worked out. And it wasn't for sale, but one of the wives of our principal was talking to the wives of one of his representatives, and she was telling her how we were looking so hard for sites on the North Shore. And she said, well, you know, my husband's working on a site to try to develop for storage. And that's how that came about. So there was a plan in place, and we were fortunate that we stumbled across it. At least I think we were fortunate to do that, and hopefully that, well, we feel like this would be a better use than what's been talked about. So, but I do think that a lot of those questions, you know, really will get addressed. We do manage over 50 of these. There are industry standards in terms of things like parking and whatnot. I think that we're well within whatever the industry standards are and what we know from our history, but I think a lot of those, while there would be concerns, probably or certainly would get addressed through a site plan review process.
Just, Jack, one question I'd had earlier that I didn't get a chance to ask yet is, what other than like Brooksby, or they want on Central, what other retirement-type facilities or CCRCs are there in the city of Peabody? Do you know some of the ones that are around that are comparable?
In the city of Peabody?
Yeah.
None.
None, okay.
Linden Ponds was the one I mentioned but that's on the South Shore. That's also Erickson, but there has been no request for CCRC development since Erickson. The only other thing I wanted to add was that in the discussion of parking, we haven't asked for any relief from parking requirements. We will comply with the parking requirement of the CCRC, which we are in excess of, actually. So the issue of parking with respect to the number of spaces we are providing is not an issue that we're seeking relief on.
Yeah, so we need a new set of plans. We need a new set of plans.
Why?
Well,
if I'm not.
So we know exactly what's going up, if it were allowed.
Okay. So we would give you a new set of fully engineered plans, or we would give you something similar to this with more detail?
At least renderings and designs.
Okay.
I think we have to request it be continued till we see those plans. I think we have to leave the public, even though everything's been said, I think we have to leave public comment open. We can't close public comment and come back to take and look at a new plan. But obviously, everyone's pretty much spoken tonight, so it shouldn't be a lot of reiteration. But I do think it's important just to have the renderings. We see them here. But I do think it's important to have them part of the record so we know this is exactly what we're voting on.
I understand we need to supply you with renderings and a new set of plans, and then have I also been asked to request a continuance?
I think it would make sense,
Right.
Attorney Kelly.
I'm happy to do that. Respectfully request that the matter be continued to your October meeting, which is 18.
So
Is
moved.
that correct?
It's right here. Hang on.
16.
And
move to, go ahead.
if in fact, when you're doing the renderings, if there's any other improvements you can do, put it on that when you pass it in.
Yeah, I guess one comment would be, I mean, a lot of people did talk about the size still, so if there's more drawing board to go back, I've mentioned that I do like the use, and I think some good faith has been put forward, but there's a real density issue, so if you guys want to reconsider that, we'd be listening to that too.
And through the chair, Attorney Kelty, last time there was a lot of discussion about the landscaping on that buffer. Is there any plans to change that landscaping buffer now that it's being reduced, or is it going to remain the same as discussed at prior?
We will add landscaping.
Okay, so it's not the fact that it's being
And we
reduced, it's
put
not going
that
to
on
take
the
away
plan.
the deciferous trees and stuff like that?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
So that will all be on the plan.
Yes.
Move to continue this matter to the October 16th meeting.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Thank you.
Yes. Okay, I'm sorry to say, if you want, you will come back next month, and we continued it one more month. Now we are,
I think
go,
it makes good sense just to let everybody exit first.
oh, right,
There's no way you're going to be able to.
right. So what,
Heckling us already. Got glasses.
did you see what the old guy did? When he left? What? Oh.
Yeah.
2-minute recess.
For Newhall. For Newhall.
Okay, we are going out of order. Right now, we are doing number 7 as number 2, 4 Nicholson Road. That is going to be next. You want to read this? It's right here.
Oh, okay. All right, this is better.
Peter and Maria Salona.
It doesn't say that here. There it is, okay. A notice is hereby given that the Board of Appeals of the City of Peabody will be holding a public hearing on September 11th, 2023 at 7 p.m. For variance from the provisions of zoning ordinances 2020 as amended section 7.2 as it applies to the premise known as 4 Nicholson Road in Peabody. Petitioner seeks a variance to subdivide and create a lot 116 and lot 117. Requires relief from minimum buildable lot area, frontage, front yard, side yard, rear yard, minimum building lot depth, minimum buildable lot width, and lot coverage. Property is located in R1A zoning district.
I'm on. All right. Good evening. For the record, my name is Ethan Vonzalitis. I'm an attorney practicing law at 246 Andover Street in Peabody, and I'm here this evening on behalf of the petitioners.
I'm sorry. We need to accept some correspondence into the record first.
Feel free.
You have it?
I'm sorry. Motion to accept the following correspondence. So that is September 8th, 2023 letter in opposition from Patrick and Hannah Galasso, Susan Kern, Thomas and Colleen Cologi, Marco and Angela Tahita, Paula and Catherine Richis, Julie Dillon, Nathaniel Barton, Deb Halligan and Greg David, Joseph and Kelly Rigel, Rebecca Booth, Scott and Dana Dressler, Joy Tachuk, and Manuel and Jamie Capola, and I think I passed my eye test.
To accept?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay.
Well, as I was stating, I am here on behalf of the petitioners with respect to their variance application. And the petitioner's property is located near the intersection of Margin Street and Nicholson Road. It was purchased by the petitioner's parents approximately 65 years ago, I believe, in 1958. If any of the board members are familiar with this area, I don't know if anybody has driven to the property and driven around the neighborhood. The first thing you'd see is that the majority of the lots are relatively small and of the same size as being requested by the petitioners. And that's because the entire area, neighborhood, has been developed in accordance with the original subdivision plan, which plan consisted of lots that contained 5,000 square feet with 50 feet of frontage. In fact, the petitioner's property consists of 2 of those lots, being lot 115 and lot 116. When the petitioner's parents purchased this property in 1958, they built a home for themselves and their family. It's the home that the petitioners grew up in, and then they retained lot 115 for future development. As you can see from the assessor's map, I believe I attached a copy with my application. Almost all the lots in this neighborhood do not satisfy the current requirements of the A1A zoning ordinance with respect to area or with respect to frontage. In fact, the majority of the lots, I would guess about 98 to 90% of them in this neighborhood consist of just 5,000 square feet of area with 50 feet of frontage. As you can see from our site plan, the existing home on lot 116 was definitely situated with the obvious intent that lot 115 would one day be developed. However, the laws of merger, because of own those 2 lots in the same entity, along with the current requirements of the R1A zoning district, don't allow for any construction without some form of variance relief which creates a substantial hardship to the petitioners. The existing home on Lot 116 is a small Cape-styled home. It has only a foundation of 936 square feet, and it does have a garage under. In regards to the proposed home on Lot 115, it also would be a modestly sized home or a similar sized home. It too will have a foundation footprint of only 936 square feet, and it too will have a garage under for ample off-street parking. As you can see from our site plan, the proposed home has more than the required front yard setback. It has more than the required rear yard setback, and it also has side yard setbacks that are similar to what you traditionally find in this neighborhood. In essence, when you look at it, I think the proposal is in keeping with the design and the character of the existing neighborhood, the way it's been developed. We all know there is a shortage of reasonably priced new construction homes in our city, and basically, I think this is a great opportunity to provide some additional housing to that particular market. I do have the petitioners here with me this evening, and together we'll try to answer any questions that the board or the public may have. Thank you. Go.
Could you come here for a minute, please? So I understand that we need housing, single-family houses in Peabody. I also understand that this conforms to what most of the lots are on Nicholson Road. However, and once again, I'm only one vote, I personally have to stick to what the ordinance is today, and today it says 15,000. So, as much as I would love to say it looks great, they're not going to be big houses, because it is so far below what is required, I personally can't vote for this. But once again, I'm only one vote.
But then again, that's why people apply for a variance, because they can't conform to the current zoning requirements.
And you know that if you ask for the sun, the moon, and the stars, sometimes it just doesn't fly. This is a little sun, the moon, and starry.
Let me ask you something. What is it you don't like about the plan? I have more than required front yard setback. I have more than required rear yard setback. I have area and frontage identical to almost all the lots. Is it my side yards? Because I can play with the side yard setbacks. I can't play with the area and frontage. The lots are as they were created. But I can...
That might help.
I can...
It might help.
It might help.
It will help.
It will help, okay.
What are you proposing?
I'm proposing anything that would make the board feel comfortable.
Let's hear from other members of the board.
Withdraw the application? I can't see this fitting here. Just because the Regals or the Kearns or the Thomas family or this, have 5,000 square lots from umpteen years ago, 15,000 required, and we want to split a lot to have two 5,000s. It's going to take a lot more work to convince me, attorney.
Well, the entire neighborhood is 5,000 square feet.
So I will say it does fit in within the neighborhood, but if we start allowing this, it's going to cascade all over the whole city.
And that's basically where this is. Okay? Yes, the rest of the neighborhood looks like what we're looking here if this gets divided. But at the end of the day, like I always say in my beginning statements, if the laws are in place today for 15,000, and you're asking for 5,000, what the heck are we doing? I understand, I know you understand also, and I know you're here for your client, and I respect that and I appreciate that, but I have to agree with Chris, and I have to agree with myself that it's just, you know, I mean, the law is the law, and the zoning ordinance is the zoning ordinance, and it's just a little bit, well, maybe it's more than a little bit too much of what you're asking. But once again, I'm only one vote.
Through the chair, if I could. I'm not an attorney. My son is, but I'm not. The laws of merger. Could you now? Does that mean that these two were was purchased originally back in 1950 something?
1958.
Two separate lots.
Two separate lots, but
Registered with the Registry of Deeds as two lots.
correct. And it still is.
All right.
But for zoning purposes, they merged because they were held in common ownership. So as the
So they
zoning ordinance...
automatically merged.
So rather than keeping them separate and apart by owning one in one entity and owning one in another, there'd be legally existing non-conforming lots. But
I wonder in my heart if the Salonas knew that that was happening when they did the ordinance, that they were going to lose the ability to have two lots that they was saving for their children because they were ignorant to the new zoning laws that were going into the city of Peabody.
most lay people don't. But
All right. I understand where the board's coming from. It just bothers me a little bit because I grew up in Gardner Park and walked by this area many times. And what will go there, whether you can see it going in there or not, is exactly what's there now. And you would have to walk many of those streets to find a bigger lot than those 5,000 square feet. So, unfortunately, you had to explain that law of merger, so I guess I have to go with the zoning ordinance also. Thank you.
Anybody in the audience to speak in favor? If you want to speak in opposition and you already sent in a letter, you don't have to come up. If you think that there's been enough people to send in letters to speak in opposition, you don't have to come up. If you have a burning desire to come up and speak, be my guest.
Through
Fran?
the chair, I guess I'll just, oh, go ahead.
They did ask that the letter be read into the record, the neighbors.
And just through the chair, just since everybody else has chimed in, I've been pretty quiet tonight, I'll say a little bit here, is that I respectfully see it a little bit different than the rest of the board. And whenever I see a merger issue, it bothers me, just because I don't handle this kind of work in my practice, but I've seen it come across in court before, in litigation before, and just when it's a merger, it just always, it bothers just because there was two separate lots. They didn't come in and buy this, knock it down to put in a four-family or whatever. So I see it a little bit differently in that respect, but I completely understand and respect the rest of the positions of the board. But I do see it as more of a hardship type issue or a conforming with the land issue than the others.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
So I will say, I'm a lawyer like Stephen. The merger doctrine does have an impact on me as well, but I think it's something that could have been remedied before this point, and it does offer a hardship, which meets the threshold. Again, this is another tough deliberation. This is like tough deliberation day. But if Fran's going to agree with herself on the record, I'm going to agree with myself too. I think that it's still a precedent that we can't set. But let me read the letter of, it's just a page and a half. Well, they asked, so that's fine. It keeps everyone coming up and speaking, I guess that's fine. I'll do it. I know, I've been reading slow today because I can't see it. Dear ladies and gentlemen of the board, and this letter, by the way, is dated September 8th, 2023, please accept this letter as written notice into the record that the undersigned residents of Nicholson and Lenox Road are opposed to the proposed subdivision at 4 Nicholson Road in Peabody. The landowner is seeking approval on multiple variances to city zoning laws. If granted, will conflict with the stated purpose of City of Peabody's zoning ordinance to an unreasonable degree. The proposed plan raises concerns over fire safety, privacy, open space, drainage, overcrowding, and street congestion. The plot of the land will be used for the proposed dwelling is in a location of a R1A zoning district and measurements just 10,000 square feet. This is 5,000 square feet shy of the current dimensional requirement for a lot in this zoning district, making this markedly small lot to be considered for subdivision. Under the proposed plan, a lot will be divided into 2 lots, with each measuring just 5,000 square feet. This is significantly smaller than the minimum required lot dimensions of 15,000 square feet. The lot width and consequently buildable lot width also do not meet the standard requirements by a considerable margin. The side yard between each lot would be just 5 feet, failing noticeably short of the 15-foot requirement. This would also prevent compliance with the required landscape buffer zone outlined in 7.3.10D of the zoning ordinance. The landscape buffer zone would need to be 50% of the minimal side yard frontage, or 7.5 feet. Furthermore, the side yard between the proposed dwelling and 8 Nicholson Road would be just 9 feet, also falling short of 15-foot requirement. That would put very small distance between the existing and new dwellings at 4 Nicholson Road, as well as between the new dwelling and existing dwelling at 8 Nicholson Road. Constructing a residence this close to those near to this lot line with the existing character of the neighborhood homes and properties. I don't know what that means. It raises concerns over privacy. The trees and greenery that provide separation between 4 Nicholson Road and 8 Nicholson Road today will largely, if not entirely, be removed to accomplish the new structure. The result will be windows for each home having a view into nothing more than the windows of the neighboring residents. More importantly, it presents concerns over fire safety. If a fire were to occur, there is now a higher risk that an exterior fire could spread from one home to another. There will be more limited access for fire and public safety personnel, as well as any service equipment that may be required in an emergency. The frontage for each lot will also measure just 50 feet. This too does not meet the dimensional requirements of 125 feet. The construction of an additional home on this lot will significantly increase the lot coverage, thereby reducing open green space in the neighborhood. Subsequently, this also cuts the amount of natural surface area that can absorb stormwater into the land. As we continuously see rainstorms of increasing intensity, we are concerned that the change in the landscape will only put more stress on the existing drainage systems. Although the proposed plan provides for a single-car garage in the driveway, there will likely be the need for street parking and residents and/or visiting guests on Nicholson Road, and then this area of road in particular. The street is already overly congested with vehicles. The addition of another residence will only exacerbate this problem, principally during the winter months when snowfall limits space to even greater degree. While we can appreciate the landowner's desire to enhance the property at 4 Nicholson Road, the proposed plan simply goes too far, and what could be considered reasonable exceptions to the current zoning ordinance in the city of Peabody. There is no hardship that would be resolved for the landowner in this case, but rather hardships would be created for neighboring residents. If approved, we feel very strongly that if subdivision is allowed to move forward, it would have detrimental impact on the neighborhood and the families who live there, some of whom have been there for generations. Moreover, it could potentially set a troubling precedent whereby small parcels of land would enjoy zoning benefits that are totally different from that of the surrounding area. This could incentivize other property owners in the city looking to capitalize on rising home values and low inventory in the real estate market to appeal to the board for similar exceptions. In closing, we hope that you will consider the concerns we have outlined and vote against the proposed subdivision at 4 Nicholson Road in Peabody. Thank you for your time. We greatly appreciate all your efforts in this matter, and in the undersigned were all the people that were mentioned in the acceptance of the correspondence.
So we're all set with it? Nobody want, you're all set? No, anybody to speak in favor? Opposed? Okay. Any comments by the board? Looks like we're ready for a vote.
Fran?
Yes?
I know it's a sensitive variance. Again, we're proposing basically what exists in the entire area. And I can understand, like I said, we have more than enough front yard, more than enough rear yard. Side yards are tight. And I was just wondering if I was to propose 10-foot side yards on both sides for the proposed home, if that might be acceptable to someone who's on the edge of where to vote.
So again, this is one of those tough deliberations where obviously the doctrine of merger has taken away what everyone else seems to have in that neighborhood. If the applicant is willing to entertain something that would be more palatable in light of what's been objected to, including maybe landscaping on the borders of the property, because privacy seems to be a real issue. Also, the additional space might even deal with some of the emergency equipment issues. But I'm really torn by that.
So
everyone else has the same size lot, and they would have too if.
So, in my mind,
A very good mind, too.
thank you. Flattery will get you somewhere, I don't know, tonight. It's not so much about landscaping, and it's not so much about side yards. It's more about 15,000 required, 5,000, 5,000. That's, you know, it's, to me, it's, unfortunately, it's black and white. Once again, I'm only one vote. If there's no more discussion, the motion is before the board. No, you can't talk from your seat. You made it right under the gun.
Just made it.
Right here, honey.
And then Lee. Hi. Kathy Arches. I live on the corner of Lennox and Margin. If I thought I was going to say anything different that's being said in here today, it's kind of why I'm hesitant to get up. But I do back the argument of not having the proper acreage, not having the proper frontage. And again, that fact in itself set a precedent for the rest of the neighborhood, the rest of the city. I don't know what to tell you, but once we start opening that door, I think everybody's going to be, oh, you did it for them, and, you know, sort of thing. And I'm nervous up here, so I don't want to really say anything else, and I don't really, again, have anything to say other than I am opposed.
Thank you very much. Matters before the board.
Motion to close the public hearing. Motion to approve.
Roll call vote.
No.
No.
Yes.
Sorry, no.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ethan.
Have a good evening.
The next one is number 2, which we're taking number 3. 4 Newhall Place, which is a continued application. 4 Newhall Place. Is anybody here from 4 Newhall Place? No, we're doing number, yeah, we're confused. Right, so we haven't received anything new from the applicant, and at this point, we can either vote to deny or withdraw without prejudice. Okay, can I have a motion to withdraw without prejudice?
Yes, having not appeared at the last, at least, I believe, 2 hearings, I'd make a motion that this application and petition be withdrawn without prejudice.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we are now on 0 Pearl Street.
Move to continue this matter to the next meeting.
0 Pearl, continue.
Yep. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, 0 Pearl Street is continued. We now have number 5, which is Hoyle Construction. So number 5 is number 4, really. Okay, so number 4 is our number 5, and that's continued also. I need a motion to accept late correspondence of a Harrop letter in opposition. Can I have a motion to accept? All in favor? Aye. We want to read this into the record?
No, they didn't. They had to request it.
Okay.
It's on the record.
Attorney Kelty. I'm sorry, I'm reading from the wrong thing.
Can we read the end?
No, 68 Prospect Street, right? We're at 68, okay. Attorney Kelty.
Yes, did we read the notice?
No, that's.
Yeah. So we're good to go, correct? John Kelty for Hoyle Construction, Inc. This is a matter that's been before the board in the past, inasmuch as we applied for certain variances right from the outset. We were happy to receive them. Then we began construction and asked for some variances on the Avalon side of the property. We were given those. We've now asked for a 15-foot rear yard as shown on our plan, and through neighborhood meeting and talks with our city councilor, I think that through the communication that you accepted as a late ad, I can cut to the chase and ask for relief of 15 feet rather than the 18 feet rather than the 15 feet I've asked. Our neighbors are in concert with us with respect to an 18-foot allowance, and that would result in decks that are 7 feet deep by 7 by 12 rather than 10 by 12. So instead of extending off the facility itself 10 feet, they would stick 7 feet, and that would give us a variance of 18 feet being requested.
And if approved, we would just need a revised plot plan showing that.
Carla, when would you need that by? Is there a time limit to get a revised plot plan? Like a week, 2 weeks, a month, a year? Oh, okay. So, okay. Any questions by the board? Anybody to speak in favor? In opposition?
Good evening, board members. Julie Daigle, Ward 4 City Councilor. I'm not here in opposition. I just, if there is going to be a revised plot plan submitted, I'm hoping you can condition your motion to review that by some of the abutters. There was some opposition, but we worked everything out. So as long as the numbers and everything, everyone's in agreement, then I would be fully supportive of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Attorney Kelty, could you just come back up to the microphone for one more second? Okay, could you just repeat one more time what the...
I had asked for a 15-foot rear yard, and we're now saying that we would ask that you grant 18 feet, which would be within the purview of your ability to do so, in as much as it is That's me and my knuckles. So I'm asking for 18 feet rather than 15 feet.
And then you will...
As simple as that.
Simple as that, with a revised plot plan. Anybody else in the audience to speak in favor? In opposition, matters before the board.
Close public hearing.
Second.
Move to approve.
With the condition,
With a revised plot plan.
yeah, with the condition of a revised plot plan.
Roll call vote?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Next is the real number 5. It is the continued application of Stephen and Jody Ditchfield. That would be 242 Lynn Street. And that's a continued hearing. The applicant has submitted a revised plot plan, and I need somebody to accept that revised plot plan and Barbara Connolly's letter in favor into the record. All in favor? Oh, any opposed? Okay. Do you want to just give us a brief description?
Sure. Jody Ditchfield, 242 Lynn Street, requesting a variance to build a fala. We scaled it back per our last meeting. So instead of asking for a variance of, I think it was 7.4, we were leaving 7.4, now we would be leaving 20.5 or 20.6 feet in between property lines. And we've also moved it so it's attached to the house. We're leaving the garage as is.
So you took our suggestions and you put it into play.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. Questions, comments by the board? Anybody in the audience to speak in favor? In opposition, matters before the board.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. You're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next one is number 7, which is our real number 6. No, it's number 6 is our number 7, which is 42 Franklin Street. That would be, yeah. That would be, yeah, Steve Injemy.
So number 6 on tonight's agenda is an application of Steve Injemy, care of attorney Jack Kelty, for variance from the provisions of zoning ordinance 2020 as amended, section 7.2, dimensional controls as it applies to premise known as 42 Franklin Street in Peabody, Massachusetts. Petitioner seeks a variance to subdivide a parcel of land, creating Lot A and B, requires relief from Lot A as 50 feet of frontage is required and 30 feet is proposed. Lot B, rear setback where 35 feet is required and 15 feet is proposed. Lot A, where 35 feet is required and 10 feet is proposed. Property is located in R2 zoning district.
Thank you, members. My name is John Kelty. I'm an attorney. I have offices at 40 Low Street here in Peabody, Mass., and I am seeking variance for my clients who have purchased this property as of March 20th, 2023. They purchased it from Catherine Fernari from the estate of Harkins, and they conveyed it to my clients in trust. My clients have prepared or had a plan prepared by Chris Mello. This is the exact same plan that you have as part of your packet. It's blown up a bit and it has highlighted. So I'm not submitting to you anything new, but I think it'll help you to see the variances. No. It's a chalk that assists. It's not a new. It just highlights in yellow where the variance, well, I think it's better than that, frankly. It's bigger, but okay. In any event, this is a request to subdivide a parcel, creating a Lot B, which is 10,222 square feet. Lot A will have 710 square feet, both of which need no relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Rather, we are seeking a setback at the rear of Lot B of 15 feet. That is where there is a angular position with respect to our relationship to our neighbor at the rear, the Lothrops. We are seeking a rear yard of 15 feet. There is actually a shed out there that will be removed, and that's closer than the 15 feet. We're proposing 28 by 52 dwelling with a deck on the rear and 4 parking spaces in the front. The other significant variance that we're asking is frontage for Lot B, which would be 30 feet on the square, which is referred to over a period of years as a passageway, as Noonan's Way. Mr. Mello has placed on the plan that those dotted lines, the way itself, the passageway is 30 by 103. And as such, the ownership of that parcel appears to be, it is not owned by my client, nor is it owned by the gentleman and family to the right-hand side of that passageway. Each of these deeds actually carves out and goes around that passageway. As such, we are seeking 30 feet of 30 feet of frontage rather than 50 feet of frontage on that parcel, which is shown as Noonan's Way. The issue of whether or not this is adequate frontage would be addressed by the planning board. We would file an A&R plan if we were granted the variances that we seek this evening. We would file an A&R plan after the passage of an appeal period, and the planning board must need determine whether or not that's a way in existence prior to zoning. Having frontage on a way in existence prior to zoning is one of the standards under which an A&R plan can be signed. However, we are showing 30 feet rather than 50 feet of frontage on that way in existence prior to zoning, referred to as Noonan Way, and as such, we do need relief from this board. So my 3 requests for dimensional relief are frontage of 30 rather than 50, a side yard of 10 feet rather than a rear yard of 10 feet rather than 35 feet for Lot A, and that is a 10-foot measurement from that existing 2-story barn. If you can see on the plan that we filed, it shows that it has an existing 2-foot side yard, and Mr. Mello has added 10 feet. The notation of 10 feet, that's where this variance is requested, and 15 feet for the rear yard of the existing dwelling, which that's the closest that we come to our boundary. At our rear yard to the left, as you can see, is almost it's 190 feet of length, and that's probably 50 feet to the nearest corner or the furthest corner with respect to our rear yard for Lot B. I'm happy to answer questions. We have done an examination of the title to the premises. There are some 6 lots that take frontage off of either Perkins Way or this particular way, Noonan's Way. This particular way has existed since 1874. I know that on several occasions, the city has come out and treated it as a public way in which they've done some minimal work to the premises. And as such, the neighbors generally maintain that particular way as between themselves. My clients a couple of weeks ago went door to door, knocked on the doors of, and I see some of those folks are here this evening, knocked on the doors with respect to neighbors that were immediate abutters. Comments ranged from assistance with the brick wall, with the stone wall that exists and has shown on plans since at least 1914. Plans of record have showed that stone wall, but my client has pledged to our neighbors that they would be happy to work on repointing, et cetera, that stone wall. And there's been a fence to prevent cutting through to what's called Perkins Way. There's a utility easement that extends from Perkins Way, which comes off of Perkins Street at a kind of perpendicular angle to this piece of property. And there's a utility easement that joins those two. One of our neighbors has constructed a fence to prevent people from cutting through. I actually used to cut through that very area when I was a student at St. John's. That was the way you got from St. John's School up to Emerson Park. Today, that cut through is encouraged to be up Seamount Street itself and then traveling up over the city land. I think fewer people use this as a cut through, but we're not intending to exercise any dominion or control over the fence that's put up, and we're happy to leave it there. I'm happy to answer questions that the board may have, and I suspect that there are abutters who want to speak this evening as well. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Through the chair, Attorney Kelty, is Noonan's Way a recognized either paper or private street?
It is not on the list of public ways that is registered at the clerk's office. However, there has been work done. There have been repairs done, but very, very sparsely or over a period of years. Predominantly, it's maintained by the people that live adjacent to it. And as Chris has shown on his the plan Chris Mello has provided, the pavement is much narrower than the 30 feet that is actually what I would regard as a way in existence prior to zoning.
Well, Attorney Kelty, this certainly is an extremely odd request, very odd lot. It looks like a pork chop lot to me, and I don't see any hardship, and I don't see how this could ever be divided and set forth at all. It is something like I've never seen before. Thank you.
Question through the chair to Attorney Kelty. On the green and yellow highlight, Chris Mello document, the lighter green, yellow little sliver to the left of Lot B, why is that staying with Lot A?
I don't have that green and yellow.
Oh.
So why is which staying with Lot?
Why is that piece of this property staying with Lot A and not just going to B?
Oh, that yellow strip, that's solely to create area in order to achieve that 7710. if we were to cut that off and make that part of Lot B, Lot B would be another perhaps 1,000 square feet or 300 or 400 square feet larger, and Lot A would be that much smaller. That's its only purpose.
I just want the board to think of one thing right now. What will people do if we ever approved this to their land? I could definitely do something like this to my land, but I would never do that. I think you need to think about that.
Well,
do you want to say something else?
Pardon? I was just going to say that I don't think that many people have the opportunity presented by this particular piece of property, which has adjacent to it that way, which I believe is a way in existence prior to zoning. So,
Anybody in the audience to speak in favor? In opposition? Come on up. You can make a little line if you want. Make a little line, one behind the other.
After 9:30, we allow lines just so we can, get you guys moving.
And remember, don't repeat. You could just say, I agree with the person in front of me, if that's the case. Name and address for the record, please.
My name's James Sonato. I live at 44 Franklin Street, which is right next door to 42. Where do we start here? James Sonato, residing at 44 Franklin Street in Peabody, Mass. Right, and formally opposed the zoning variance application submitted by Mr. Steve and Jemmy. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Where am I? Sorry. Peabody at map lot 084-188. As the owner of the neighboring property at 44 Franklin Street in Peabody, Mass., I have a direct interest in the outcome of this application. The variance application seeks relief from the provision of the zoning ordinance in 2020 as amended in section 7.2. As stated, I would like to express my concerns about the variance application based on the following additional grounds. Impact on water percolation and mitigation. The proposed involves a significant increase in pavement, potentially hindering the natural percolation of the water. This raises concerns about proper water mitigation, which leads to drainage issues and other related problems. Overburdening of accessway. This street, which they're saying is Noonan's Way, I've taken care of for 7 years, and previously it was Miss Hawkins and Mr. Hawkins. I've had trees fall on my house. I'll get to that part in a minute. The proposed development may strain accessway used to reach both 44 and 42 Franklin Street. This includes concerns about utilities, which could place an additional burden on this access route. Safety concerns during construction. With limited space for traffic and heavy equipment, there are genuine safety concerns, particularly for children in the area during the construction phase. Safety and school children, of school children. The increased traffic resulting from the proposed development could pose a safety risk for children traveling to and from school, especially considering the proximity of the driveway. Proper drainage from blasting, damage from blasting. If blasting into the ledge is required for foundation work, it may cause disruption in the settling of foundation in neighboring properties, potentially leading to structural damage such as cracks, leaks, and other issues. History of road maintenance responsibilities. I've taken responsibility of maintaining this accessway to both 42 and 44 Franklin Street the past 7 years, as did the previous owners for many years before. This is a critical factor to consider and evaluating the impact of the proposed development. I've had damage from fallen trees. This driveway has experienced incidents of fallen trees that have resulted in significant property damage, including vehicles, roof and side and windows, and retaining walls. Over the past 7 years, these incidents have caused upwards of $100,000 in damage. Despite the severity of these incidents, I was informed that it was my responsibility to address the damages, and the driveway is not considered a public road. I've requested sand barrels for previous years at the bottom of the driveway for maintenance have been denied, despite the potential hazard by icy conditions. Ensuing safe access during the winter months is vital for vehicles and students that walk up it and down it. Privacy concerns. The proposed development may infringe on the privacy of neighboring properties, including my own. The potential change in this layout of the use of the land may lead to a loss of privacy for residents. I request that the City of Peabody Zoning Board and Appeals carefully weigh these substantial concerns in the evaluation of the proposed variance and deny the variance. I appreciate your attention to this matter, and I trust that you will give it the thorough consideration it deserves.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
Hello, my name is Mark Puppo. I own 12 Rear Perkins Street, and I'm here today to strongly oppose the zoning relief proposed at 42 Franklin Street. I share 210 feet of property line with the address, and my concerns are many. They include safety concerns, congestion issues, privacy concerns, water mitigation issues, and a lack of a hardship. But my biggest concern is the rear setback being 15 feet when 35 is required. I mean, the proposed subdivision simply does not fit. The property is not big enough for what is proposed, and we have rules for a reason. So I petition the board to deny the application for relief. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Amarjeet Singh, and I own the 5 Seamount Road, which would be right behind, will be next to Lot B. So I agree with my neighbor regarding the privacy issues, safety issues. I would just like to add, that street where they're trying to construct this house is not a public street. It is it is a backyard of 42 Franklin Street. So, and the other thing is it was mentioned that the shed would be taken down. That shed is visible from my house. I pretty much watch that shed pretty much every day. I've been at this residence for almost 6.5 years. So I've never seen anyone go in that shed. God knows what is in that shed, and once that shed is taken down, whatever's infested with, whatever comes out, I'm gonna be probably the biggest beneficiary of whatever comes out of that. Again, privacy issues. It's a backyard, and that house, 15 feet from my fence, is going to be right up against my fence. And everything else my neighbors mentioned, I agree with everything else. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Glenn White. I live at 14 Rear Perkins Street. I am right where the fence is. That fence has been there for 30 years. I have been there for 30 years. The reason why that fence was there, the gentleman that Mark had bought the house, the previous owner, put the fence there because a lot of the Peabody traffic was coming down a private way, and it was a cut through to get to the square. So they put the fence there because the city would not pave the road, they would not maintain the road, it was a private way. So if that fence came down with all the kids that live on Perkins Street, Rear Perkins Street, that's a major cut through and a lot of traffic. And it was really bad when you guys straightened that out. Thank God the flooding, that was a major cut through. People didn't know. They just turned around in our yards. It was a disaster. I'll keep it quick.
Thank you very much.
John Desmond, 4 Seamount Road. I grew up in this area. When I was 11, 12 years old, my friends and I would stand on Noonan's Way. It'd be summer, it'd be dusk, we'd have BB guns, and we would shoot the rodents that would come out of that land where the house was going to be built. That was 60 years ago. Those rodents haven't gone away. They're still there. If not, they've multiplied. What's going to happen when you dig up that land? Those rodents are going to go to all the surrounding houses. That's not going to be fair. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Looks like we have lots of concerns. Any other comments? Anybody else from the board, from the audience? All set here? Okay. Matters before the board.
Motion to close the public hearing. Second. Motion to approve.
Roll call vote.
No.
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 No. Application has been denied. Excuse me. Next one is number 8, which is public storage. Yep.
Number 8 on tonight's agenda is an application from Public Storage, care of Brian Brinkers, for a variance from the provisions of zoning ordinance 2020 as amended, section 11.5.2, as it applies to the premise known as 151 Andover Street, Peabody, Massachusetts. Petitioner seeks a sign variance that requires relief from number of wall signs allowed to 2, which 5 are proposed. The property is located in an RR zoning district.
Evening, Board. My name is Brian Brinkers, and I own Acme Sign Company here in Peabody. I'm here to get relief for a few additional signs that the Public Storage at 151 Andover would like to put on their building.
Where is that?
It's the old bookstore.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
so-
I didn't mean to get that excited.
So back when the property was bought, they had actually doubled the size of the building. There was tons of land, and so they made it bigger. And per Wright, we've put signage on. We replaced the signage that was existing for a very short period of time from what's called Andover self-storage. With the permitted signs, and here looking for relief for us to put a third sign, which is essentially be on the other end of the building along its frontage on the Route 128 off-ramp.
Okay, is that sign, any of these signs illuminated? Are they lit?
The 2 that are currently on the building that were permitted, within the last month are in fact lit.
Do they stay lit all night?
I don't know.
Well, do you think that,
I'm not sure if there was a provision put on it, but the,
24-hour
they're
access?
by right, they were
is
allowed.
there 24-hour access to this storage facility? I know you're just the sign guy, but...
I'm only the sign. I believe there is 24-hour access, but I'm not sure.
Are you familiar with this property?
Sure.
So I just... I don't know what's wrong with me. Excuse me. So, could you tell me, in addition to the sign being lit up a little bit, or a lot, or whatever, is this facility lit detrimentally to the neighbors all night long?
I'm not aware of that. I mean, there's
That a no?
there's parking lot lights.
Parking lot lights. Okay.
Yeah, but there's no like spotlights or flashing or so.
Through the chair. I know this building's in the middle of the lot, and it doesn't really abut other buildings directly. Are all the signs going to be affixed to the building?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so our proposal is to put a sign on the third corner or side of the building that has street frontage. In particular, it's the off-ramp for Route 128 South that would go to Route 114 West, which is towards Middleton, and also serve as property identification for traffic that would be heading westbound on 114 from Salem, say, towards Middleton. That's one of the signs that we're seeking relief on. And then there are 2 additional non-illuminated signs, and all they're intended to do is indicate the rental office and the loading area. And those, again, are non-illuminated, quite a bit smaller.
Just so I'm clear, because I'm not, the illuminated sign is on the end of the building, the off-ramp to 128 onto 114.
Correct.
The 2 additional signs are non-illuminated signs to designate office and, what was the other one?
Loading.
Loading. Okay, thank you.
So the rental office sign is like on the Loris Road side of the building. And the loading sign is meant to be on the back of the building.
Through the chair, my concern is the illuminated part, and obviously that end of that building, I grew up there, I lived there many, many, many years. There is no residences on that side of that property, down at Chandler's, or whatever it's called these days. It's far, far, far away. My concern was the illumination, and I'm going to support this.
Anybody in the audience to speak in favor? In opposition? Yes.
So, Steve, you want to do your regular?
Hi, Board. My name's Stephanie Peach. I'm the Ward 3 counselor, and I've been working with the residents as the previous owner had a list of conditions that answer a lot of the questions you had. So we have been trying to get a good contact for the new company that's come in. We've had some communication issues. So we would ask that this is continued until we can solve that up, because we haven't had the signs basically, they're not supposed to be lit 24 hours. There's not supposed to be access to the building 24 hours. The lights in the parking lot are not supposed to be on 24 hours, and all of these things are occurring. And the neighborhood currently has no way of...
You know what, and it's funny you say that, Stephanie, because Councilor Gamache earlier told us that the 55 and over community, if it wasn't approved, they would put a storage facility there which is accessible 24 hours. So, and you're just telling me that it shouldn't be accessible 24 hours.
This lot has been converted in usage, and there was a special permit issued for a storage facility with multiple conditions accepted by the previous owner prior to my being on the council. So that is something we're trying to resolve with the new owners. So as a way to work together in the city, ask that the board table this, and I believe the applicant is willing.
So at the end of the night, the only thing that is before us right now is the signage, not anything else. So I understand where you're coming from, but, you know, as far as the communication and the 24 hours, the only thing that's before us right now that we have to deal with is signage. I understand where you're coming from, but you also have to understand where we're coming from.
I understand the applicant is willing to continue, and if we don't have a way to resolve the other issues on the property, the neighborhood is opposed to the new signage.
Through the chair, we could condition this to obviously, if the current owner is not living up to their special permit that was issued by our council, shame on them, and let's get a forum to deal with that. Let's condition this in a way that Councilor Peach's concerns were addressed, because I remember that meeting and I watched it, because that's what I do, and I remember the concern of those neighbors about the lighting. I didn't remember the specifics part about 24 hours, and I remember their concern. If those lights are on for 24 hours and they're not supposed to be,
And that's why I asked.
shame on them.
Because I remember that was an issue for the neighbors, the lighting. So yeah, we can condition the sign.
Yeah, I think we'd be within our rights to condition. I don't know if we can continue. That might be arbitrary and capricious because it's outside our scope, so.
Yes?
My name is Haley Ventura Wilson. I live at 3 Reynolds Road. I abut the property. I was that person, yes. Yeah, so, not to repeat anything that was said, but I'm opposed to the signs right now. We are a business and residential line. We are supposed to work together. We have not met these people. I know you don't care. I understand that.
It's not that I don't care. I care a lot. Unfortunately.
Understandable. Yeah. And that's why I'm not bringing up all the things that they're not following. What I'm saying is I'm opposed to the signs. They are allowed 2 signs. Let's give them their 2 signs. They already have them. They're illuminated, and yes, they are 24/7. Turn into the neighborhood. You will see them at all times. They want signs in the back that abut our properties to look at. They're saying they're not illuminated. I can't trust them whatsoever in what they're saying.
So I guess the question now for everybody to think about is approve with conditions, or think about, is that extra sign necessary?
May I? Thank you. I don't know why these signs are necessary. The sign that would face us is loading, and if you don't know that that's the loading zone, I'm not quite sure why they need that sign. But they're not considering anybody but themselves. And you give a business, they are a major corporation. They are not part of Peabody. You give a business an inch, they are going to take a mile.
Thank you.
Yep.
I think one of the things we can do is review the special permit. I think we can take a look at that and continue it on that basis.
So the special permit, I have it up. One of the conditions is the outdoor lighting be turned off at 11 p.m. to 8 a.m.
Those are our conditions.
With the exception of motion detector security lighting.
So I have a question. That was a condition. It's obviously been told to us. I don't live near there, so I don't know. But it was told to us that that's not being done. Who is the enforcer of that?
The building inspector, but it's a special permit as well, so if the owner isn't abiding by the special permit, then, and Stephanie, I think you can help me with this.
And
What
if
do
we
you
give
call it when they
relief?
come back to the city council? Thank you.
If we
A
give
show
relief
cause
and
hearing.
condition it, the building inspector has to enforce that too. So, I'm fine conditioning it on the special permit, but if anyone else wants.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're asking for signs. Part of the thing that we can do is talk about the illumination of those signs. The special permit has hours for that illumination, so if we just... I know Kyle just read it, I haven't seen it, so, we could just mention it on the record, but, I mean, obviously the building inspector would have to deal with the special permit, so.
I just have one question for Ward Councilor Peach. Is your primary concern right now, and nothing to do with communication, but the illumination of the signs?
I think the primary
according to the special permit.
I think the primary concern of the neighborhood is they cannot trust this corporation.
I know, but we can't condition that.
But you have, all I'm asking, I think, I would ask that you deny if you want to take a vote today, because I don't think they need this sign. And maybe that prompts them to start communicating with the city. But if you want to move forward and approve, I would ask that we wait for that to be done so that we have time to work on other issues that are on this property. This is a prime opportunity for us to be able to do that. I think if we continue it to the next meeting, the company could most likely get their sign, and the neighborhood will get what they need. Otherwise, I would ask that you deny.
I understand all of that, but once again, what's before us is signage.
Well, I think the problem is I don't think we have the authority to continue this. The applicant hasn't requested it. It's their petition, with all due respect. I mean, we can't, the applicant would need to request that it be continued. But I do think we can condition it upon the special permit. I just don't, without the applicant here and the only representative, again, no disrespect, you work for the sign company and not actually the named applicant on here. There's no attorney or other representative to accept a continuance.
So, Carla, according to the special permit, what is the exact wordage for signage?
That's for lighting. So outdoor lighting to be turned off at 11 p.m. to 8 a.m. with the exception of motion detector security system.
Question through the chair to Councilor Peach. Has the council taken any action formally on this non-responsive owner?
I have been trying to get the building commissioner to reply about the special permit conditions and set up a site meeting. I have not. I can't request a show cause hearing without a violation on file, and without the building department issuing a violation, I can't have a show cause hearing. So this is very new. This was recently purchased. The prior owner of this property was significantly responsive to the neighbors. When power outage happened and timers were messed up on the lights, he fixed it immediately. Again, this is a major corporation. This sign is not needed. It's in the rear of the building. It faces the abutters. It's not needed. It's something that will be seen through the foliage when it's gone. So I would ask that it's denied because it's not needed if we can't continue.
Councilor Peach, which one are you referring to? We're talking about, we have, just so I'm clear, we have the two, let's say, public stores that are lit, and you have a loading and a rental, and those ones are not lit per the plans in front of us. Which one's facing the back? Because I'm not familiar enough with the area.
I'm not familiar with what's facing the back either, and I'm not familiar with what's lit or not lit. When I looked at the plans that were sent to me, it looked like everything said illuminated. I think essentially if a corporation is not going to work with the city, why would we issue them a variance? It's
Question.
I wouldn't issue a special permit to a company that was unwilling to work.
That's not our.
But it is your stance to issue a variance for a signage, and you have the ability to either continue this meeting or deny.
So we don't have the ability
Okay,
to continue the
thank you.
meeting, and we can't be arbitrary and capricious with our decisions. We have to just go with, you can't act outside your bounds, and we can't act outside our bounds.
Through the chair, does everybody have enough information to want to make a vote tonight?
Well, I have a question. If the counselor is concerned about illumination in the back of the building, we could get, I think we were told they weren't going to be illuminated, but that can also be a condition as well.
Not to be disrespectful to the applicant, but when we asked him specific questions regarding the lighting, he was unsure of, and he shouldn't be. He's the guy that puts the lighting up, and you know.
If you're talking about parking lot lighting, I'm not aware of it.
Right. So, in other words,
but I am aware of the sign lighting or not.
Right.
He's a sign guy.
Very much.
Right. So, I mean,
Which signs
but
are
you
lit?
couldn't tell us if the signs were lit.
But I most certainly can and did.
So, are they lit 24/7?
But that's not the question.
Are they lit or not, or what?
No.
Yes, are they lit or not? For God's sakes.
24/7.
The question is, are they, I'm sorry, but it's getting late, it's been a long day, this is a simple question. There are 4 signs before us. 2 say public storage, one says rental office, one says loading. Which ones have lit letters?
Okay, let me straighten things out. I think there's some confusion. There are 3 signs before the board tonight. One is an illuminated sign that's to go on the side of the building that faces the 128 exit ramp. That can be seen on, I'll tell you which page, because we definitely don't want to be confused. That can be seen on page 5 of 7. It also shows on the lower left-hand corner the simulated night view. So it's not the entire sign that lights, it's just the letters. Okay, then there are 2 additional signs, each of which are non-illuminated, which is clearly indicated by drawing on page 6 of 7 that says rental office, and 7 of 7 that says loading. Now, it's the loading sign that would be located on the rear of the building or the side of the building that abuts the property owners on Reynolds Road. It's non-illuminated. The letters are 7-inch high letters that say loading. It's not a lot. It's a huge building, and such a very small sign above 4 automatic doors is minimal. It's 6 square feet. Not a lot.
Question through the chair.
Go.
Are you authorized to request a continuance?
I would not want to request a continuance tonight.
Thank you, Chris. So, anybody else? Matter is okay.
Hi, I'm Alan Graglia, 5 Reynolds Road. I abut the property, and I'm just asking if you could hold this off until we get in contact with a representative from the company, and hold this over their heads until we can make an arrangement with them. You guys are supposed to be working together with the city councilor, so I'm just.
So it's a statement like holding it over their heads is what the illegal part of that is. We
Well,
cannot
put it
undo
this-
influence something that we
How
don't
about
have authority over.
We don't like the lighting. Is that simple enough? We don't like the lighting, and we need to speak to the owner or someone who has the authority to make the decisions. That's simple enough.
You can oppose this and object to it.
I am opposing
I
it.
understand that, but the point we're just trying to get across is the message that's being sent. And
Okay.
we understand it, is that we cannot say we're going to continue something because you need to talk to an unresponsive owner.
Okay.
We don't have that authority.
Well, put it this way, they had a thing for 2 signs, so they don't need the 5 signs, the other 3 signs.
Then
Okay.
that's a legitimate objection.
All right,
Yes.
how's that?
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Yep, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, matter is before the board.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion to approve. And unfortunately, we don't have, no disrespect to the gentleman that's presenting this, no one with the authority to continue it, you know, condition it. I'm not, I've changed on that. You know, I'm not going to support this. If it was that important, Councilor Peach she does her work. She does her homework. It's not like she tried once to reach these folks, I'm sure. It was multiple times. I'm not going to support this.
So if the counselor, and I understand her concern as well as the neighbor's concern, if the counselor has taken the steps to get, say, the building inspector or somebody to enforce what the provisions were, and those people are unresponsive, I'm sorry to hear that. What I did say to the folks and the neighbors is that, and I took their numbers here, that I would make a reasonable effort to point out to the public storage people that, hey, listen, there were some concerns there tonight, and they're easy to resolve, but you got to call these people and talk to them. So because they said that they tried to get in touch with these people at Public Storage and they were unable to get a response, I don't know, but what I can do is reach out to them and say, listen, somebody's trying to get in touch with you.
Through the chair, again, they found the time to call you and ask you to come to this hearing, but they can't call the counselor and answer some questions of the community.
Well, again, I'm not sure if the right person got, that message. But the other thing is I'm doing this for the sign company that does all of the work for Public Storage. I don't speak to the people at Public Storage and never have. This is for a company called Image National.
I got very uncomfortable with this vote. We've been asked to do something that's not appropriate, and it's now influencing us. You're gonna get what you want because I'm going to abstain, but this is exposing us to liability.
To vote anything on this. We've made diligent effort here to explain why we can and cannot do things. It's impacted our ability to vote on this and how we can vote on it. And we're volunteer members of a board of the city, and I am not going to open the board or myself up to either personal or city liability on this. We have, not to put ourselves in a different position, but Keith and I have separate ethical obligations outside of this board, and I am not jeopardizing that for a sign. So
If you abstain, he abstains, I
then there's no
abstain.
vote.
There's no vote.
Happens.
So what happens? Is it no vote if we don't vote on it? Is that a denial?
Well, we call for the vote, and then whoever needs to abstain, abstains, and then the petitioning party can do whatever they have to do.
We had a motion to close the public hearing, we had a second, we had a motion to approve.
I'm not going to second anything.
Right, neither.
Okay. So,
I'm not going to second anything. Barry can second. Sorry, I'm on the record. Now I'm on the record. I'm not even going to second anything.
That's just...
did we have a motion to approve? Did we have a second? What's happening? We can't hear you guys. Yeah, well, we're getting ready to maybe take a vote.
Right, so maybe it's not, this might be too far away, so is that better? So the basic idea is that both Keith and I have put forward is that there have been requests made of this board that are now impacting our ability to make a decision tonight. The requests were requests that we are not allowed to entertain as part of a vote. And because they have been repeatedly put before us, they're impacting the decision on a vote. It's rendering this vote potentially either an inappropriate vote, an out-of-order vote, an illegal vote. It could be any of those number of things. And because of that, I'm not comfortable with it, voting on it. And in this instance, because of that, I'm going to abstain from voting on it and seconding anything, because there are ethical obligations that I have outside of this volunteer position. And over this issue, I can't get involved in it. The vote has been too skewed by stuff that has nothing to do with the application.
I think that was made very clear, and it happened repeatedly. I'm also going to abstain. If the motion doesn't get seconded, then the motion has to fail.
Do I hear a second? Do I hear a second? Do I hear a question?
I hear a question.
Go.
It's not late.
You understand that if they abstain, it's gonna get refused, and you can't come back for that sign for how long?
2 years.
2 years. So I would recommend that you withdraw request to withdraw without prejudice, so that you can maybe resolve the issue with the owner, and then come back for your sign. Because if you go forward the way it's going now, you can't come back to this board for 2 years, because it's going to
fail.
It's going to fail. So I would strongly suggest you withdraw without prejudice.
So is the board going to vote on it here tonight?
If you don't want to withdraw without prejudice, yes, the board is going to vote.
Okay, please proceed.
Okay. Second.
Roll call vote.
I'm abstaining.
Chris.
No.
Barry.
Yes.
Stephen.
I abstain.
Fran.
I abstain.
Doesn't carry.
Doesn't carry.
Well, because you need 4 yeses, and you only got 1 yes and 1 no. Here we go. The last one. Continued application of 41 Newbury Street Realty LLC. It's at 40B. First, we need to accept some correspondences. Motion to accept, you don't mind if I do it? Motion to accept the following correspondence. 82323 revised site plan, 82423 revised stormwater report, 82423 Eagle Brook letter, 82423 traffic response letter from Bayside Engineering, 82423 Eagle Brook civil response letter. 82923 Langley Stormwater Peer Review. 82923 Horsley Witten Memo, second peer review stormwater. 82923 Tie and Bond Memo to Bob Langley, traffic peer review. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Who's coming up?
I'm going to make a complaint. I might make an ethical complaint.
I just have a question for Attorney Silverstein. The Phase 1 assessment waiver, is that all set?
That's off the table. We have a Phase 1 underway.
Perfect.
And we'll be providing that.
Okay. So now we're going to listen to what you have to say. And show.
Setting that up quickly. Good evening. I know we're last on a long night, so I'm not going to keep you here too long. We view tonight mainly as just sort of an update for the board, let you know where we are on various matters. We've made a lot of progress, so we haven't had a chance before tonight to just put up on the screen the project so the board can see. I do have hard copies of the presentation. Would that be helpful for the board members to have hard copies in front of them? No. Okay. And I'm happy to provide one to, I emailed it to Carla. Okay, so this of course is the project. I think we can probably run pretty quickly through the next slides. This is the team. So here we are. To date, we, as you know, we opened the hearing on June 12th. We've received peer review on both traffic and stormwater. And as you'll see in the coming slides, we have responded and incorporated comments into the project plans. And Ben can speak to that. Ben Minnick's the project engineer in more detail. But we've received supplemental peer review letters from Horsley Witten and Tie and Bond, essentially indicating that all their concerns have been satisfied. As you can see at the bottom, we have, as I just indicated, ordered a Phase 1. We're waiting for that. And we are still waiting for the sewer peer review from Weston and Sampson. Their expected delivery deadline has gotten pushed back a number of times. So that's all the information I can give you. The last deadline or last delivery date they'd indicated was last week, and we still haven't seen it. So as soon as we get that, we will jump right on it and respond to those comments. Excuse me. Next slide, please. So this is the site, if you're all familiar with it. It's just a vacant lot. It's nothing very pretty to look at. Next slide. So this is the facade plan of what the project will look like. We don't have the project architect here today, but you heard from him earlier, and he put these on the board. So we just figured this would be easier for you to get a better sense of it. That's the roof deck, which I know the applicant personally put a lot of thought into with the applicant, and we feel like that'll be a great amenity for the tenants of the project. Next slide. Just another rendering of what the roof deck's going to look like. Next slide. So this is the ground floor plan. Most of the ground floor is actually subterranean parking because of the slope of the site. It's sort of ground floor slash basement. There are the 2 commercial tenant spaces on the first floor, and you can see those there. There are no residential units on the first floor. And this is going to be the typical floor plan for the upper floors where the residential units are. I know it's probably tough for you to make out. There are a couple typical floor plans that will be coming up on future slides, and you'll see that they're good size units for this market. Next slide. So here we go, a typical unit plan. Again, good size units ranging from 1 to 3 bedrooms. So as I mentioned, we received peer review comments. This is a list of a number of the changes or responses that were provided. I'd say from an engineering standpoint, again, Ben can speak to this if the board members have any specific questions. The biggest change that was made was to substantially enlarge the stormwater infrastructure on the site to account for what the peer reviewer, I think, conservatively identified as the current condition of the site absorbing more runoff as the existing condition. Is that right, Ben?
That's correct.
Okay. And we added a number of details on the plans with respect to traffic controls on the site and responded to the Conservation Commission letter as well, clarifying really that there's very little happening within that 25-foot buffer, and it's in an area that's already disturbed. And as I mentioned, the phase 1 is underway. Next slide, please. Ben, do you want to run through these changes quickly?
Thank you for having me. Ben Minix with Eagle Brook Engineering, 491 Maple Street, Danvers. So I'll show you on the site plans. I think that'd be easier. So I will just run through quickly the site movement of vehicles and pedestrians, how the site is accessed, just to remind the board, and now that you can see it again in front of you. Okay, if you can see my pointer here, here is Newbury Street. North is this direction. We have west, east, and south. Little Elder Pond is over here. So northbound on Newbury Street, cars will enter the existing driveway here. It's a shared driveway between all these lots. Cars will enter the subject property through this two-way entrance exit here, and they can circle the building in a one-way fashion here underneath the second floor overhang. So this is actually a separate parking structure. This is the ground floor retail commercial space with a main lobby in the middle. Cars can park back here, come around the building, and exit here. And then there's a one-way median here on the main drive aisle. So cars would exit here and come back onto Route 1. If they're exiting here, they take a right and either go to Hotel Ave behind the Marriott, the suites, Marriott Spring Hill Suites, or take a left back on the driveway to Route 1. There is also an existing parking structure below grade. Cars that would come up the driveway would take a right down this existing driveway and enter the parking garage, not shown on this sheet, but it's below grade, below what you see on this ground floor layout. So what we changed on this last submittal, the main portion from the Horsley-Witten peer review, it basically came down to sizing the stormwater system. There's quite a few comments that impact the stormwater system, so once you adjust one of those things, it kind of blows up the whole thing, and you have to look at a redesign. But essentially that required almost doubling the size of this stormwater system. This one essentially remained the same. Really no big issue as far as the rest of the site design goes. There's just a lot of details in the stormwater report that had to be addressed in basically a resubmittal of the stormwater report. I think that pretty much summarizes the peer review from Horsley Witten, but certainly any specific questions I could answer.
Just a quick question. There's parking under the building plus a separate freestanding parking structure, correct?
So I will try to make it more clear because it is hard to see on the site plans and especially also with the peer reviewers. So on the ground floor, you have exposed air parking at the front of the building. You also have underneath the second floor residential area, there is some parking back here, which overhangs the building slightly. You have a couple employee parking spaces here. And then below what you see on this ground floor level is a separate garage parking below grade. And that garage partially extends into the above grade parking. If you'd like, I can show you another sheet with just the below grade parking.
Just a follow-up question. Parking lots assigned per unit, or is it going to be free for all to race around this building to get a under parking spot versus somewhere else?
So we have so far designated back here as residential, and then based on the number for zoning analysis, commercial along here. This right now is designated as employee, and then below grade as residential. I don't think we have numbers assigned, but I think that is the plan to assign specific spaces. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a little up in the air. So EOHLC likes to see untethered parking these days. That's the big thing that they like. Obviously, from the standpoint of the landlord, it's better to be able to assign the parking and not have the situation you're referring to. But to some extent, that's sort of, we're going to have to work with the state on that. So I don't think that's absolutely established at this point.
One other thing to consider is we do have proposed EV parking, a couple spaces here and in the basement, the ground floor, subgrade garage. There's some EV parking with more ready spaces if there's a need in the future. So they'll have to consider that as far as assigning parking as well.
Great. Next slide. So I think we can run through these. Ben has walked you through this already. I want to go. Happy to answer any questions about landscaping. Obviously, it's not a large site, and the landscaping is mainly going to be along Route 1 and is going to be of a similar quality as what you see on the applicant's existing commercial property, but will be subject to the restrictions of state DOT. I guess just one thing I wanted to point out on the zoning tables, we did add a couple of waivers that Ben and I went back and forth on. One is the building coverage, in part because we weren't positive whether the extent to which to count the parking deck and the underground parking. If you count both of those, we're I think just a shade over 50%. I wouldn't think, since it's different from open space and given the definition of lot coverage in the ordinance, I wouldn't think we would count the underground parking, in which case we're just a shade above the cap of 35%. I think we're at like 36%. If you don't count that, we're under. To be, safe, we ask for a waiver of it, but it's debatable whether or not we need the waiver, but just to be safe, we call that out on the plan. The other thing we added is some of the parking spots are slightly under the 9-foot width that's required under the ordinance, so we added that in there as well. And that was all subject of the back and forth with Ty and Bond on the parking, and they have, as I said, seemed satisfied in their latest review letter. Next table. Slide. As I mentioned, there were a number of details added to the plans with respect to parking controls. Happy to go through those, or have been, and Ken Cram from Bayside, who's our traffic expert and is here, go through those with you in detail. But again, I think Ty and Bond seemed satisfied with it, so I'll move on unless the board has any questions on those. Ken, do you want to quickly just run through the parking comments?
You'll have to bear with me. I can't see too well tonight. See better without my glasses. Yeah, Ken Cram, Bayside Engineering. As indicated, there was a peer review letter from Tetra Tech dated July 7th. We provided a response letter dated August 23. And then there was a second review letter from Tetra Tech. And we are in the process of putting together final responses. The date of that letter was August 29th. Again, most of the stuff was pretty straightforward and standard. They asked for clarification on a few details, and particularly they asked us to take a look at the site distance at the Marriott's rear driveway with Hotel Street, or Hotel Ave, I'm sorry. And we did take a look at that. There are a row of arborvitaes there that do block the sight lines a little bit, but because of the nature of the intersection where you have traffic approaching from only one direction and then east of that location, but west of it, it's two-way traffic flow. Vehicles tend to use the existing widened kind of shoulder to pull out a little bit. And there has been no significant crash history at that location, but in the follow-up response and in our eventual letter, we've noted that they've asked that we work with the landowner to try and cut that back, straighten out the stop sign, take the additional sign off the stop sign per Mass DOT and MUTCD regulations. A stop sign is only supposed to have one sign on the post. No other signs are supposed to be on the stop sign. So we will work with the landowner to affect that change. The other comment was on the quantity of the parking. We looked at justification for that, provided that information to Ty and Bond, and they concurred with our findings. They just asked that we take a look at some of the widths of the parking spaces, which we don't know entirely what's going to happen yet, but because the existing column structure that's in the garage portion, some of the spaces get to be a little less than 8.5 feet, but that's only right where the columns are. There's plenty of swing room for the doors because there's no column that goes the entire length of the parking stall. There were other comments that the Ty and Bond made on the site plans themselves, as Ben talked about a few minutes ago, where they asked us to just clarify some information and add notes to the plans, to make sure that sight lines are maintained and so forth. Bicycle rack, they want to know where that was, et cetera, et cetera. So that's basically a sum of the review as it stands. They've come back. They had 2 clarification comments, and we'll be addressing that in the next day or so.
So unless the board has any questions, that's the update where we are at this point. As I said, we're waiting for the sewer peer review. We're waiting for the phase one. We're hoping that we'll have both of those and be able to get those peer reviewed the next time we come before you. And as far as we can tell, those are the outstanding items, and I think we're making progress. If the board has any questions at all, I'm happy to address them. Perfect. Thank you so much for the time, and we'll see you, I guess.
So we need a motion to continue this till October 16th.
So moved.
Oh, do I need a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we will see you October 16th.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I need a motion to accept the minutes for July and August. All in favor? Motion to adjourn.